All right. Can I be heard? I can. What up, everybody? It's your boy, the Infinite Dragon here, and welcome to a drawing stream. If you're watching this on YouTube, you're watching an archive stream, be sure to check me out live. Link is always in the description down below, as well as a link to my Discord, which I'll let you know what I'm doing, what I'm thinking, how I'm feeling, all of that good stuff. Hello, Weez. Hello, Fizzy. Fizzy, thank you for being first. I heard there was a balance patch to YouTube in which we can curse in the first few minutes of the video, so fuck shit ass cocksucker motherfucker. We'll see if the video gets monetized or not. How's everyone doing? So, silksong is obviously coming out this week. And I'm going to be playing it. And I'm going to be drawing the thumbnail. I draw the thumbnails for all of my videos. But I don't really have anything I want to do until the game comes out. Like, I'm not really feeling 100 line at the moment, and I don't really want to do Ocarina at the moment because I want to give my hands some time to rest. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to be drawing a little bit. We're going to just be yapping. You get what I mean? I'm playing some Costume Quest, an integral game to my childhood. What is that? You mentioned that before in the Discord. Link in the description down below. Drawing, hell yeah. Yeah. So I asked for like a Hollow Knight lore video. And we're gonna be having that play in the background, and then we'll probably switch to some music afterwards. If you're just watching this and hanging out in the background, and you're watching this on YouTube and you don't hear the music later in the video, it's because I have it running on a separate track for you to play your own music if you want. But this video was provided to me by Weezlink, but it's by Mossbag. It is the mostly complete lore of Hollow Knight, and we're gonna be running that in the background. Make sure it can be like the volume is fine.
Me, what is your favorite video game ever made?
Is that volume fine?
I would have to say Cory in the House for the Nintendo DS.
I can't believe that game even got made, to be honest.
Second. Hollow Knight was released on February 24th, 2017 by Team Cherry, an indie game studio based in the mythical land of Adelaide.
Costume Quest is a Halloween-themed RPG. Its whole story is that you can either play as Reynold or Ren. The person you don't choose is dressed up in some candy corn and gets kidnapped by monsters because they think they're a big piece of candy. Just take off the candy corn outfit then. Sounds very Halloween-based. I like it.
South Australia. Over the past 3 years, Hollow Knight has become an indie darling. The game has sold over 3.5 million copies. It was the opening game at ADGQ 2019. There's a Hollow Knight book, a line of plushies, t-shirts, nicotine patches, nuclear warheads, and even vinyl records for all you
Fuck, I know, he jump scared me with that nicotine patches. That's not a real thing.
When making Hollow Knight, they wanted to create a world that allowed players to get completely lost in exploration. We can see this desire in Hollow Knight's
design. I don't actually know the plot of Hollow Knight, I'll be honest.
Hollow Knight are massive, with secrets and rewards hidden in every nook and cranny, be that powerful charms, special abilities, or the game's navigation system requires the player to work for their map, forcing them to make a stronger mental image of the world in their head. Christopher Larkin's score and Ari Gibson's artwork lend to this as well, creating an atmosphere that the player won't want to leave. But there's one aspect of Hollow Knight that keeps
and the entire concept is you play as the person you choose at the start of the game, and the other two characters, Everett and Lucy, in whatever costume you're wearing, you turn into that costume. Think of that one Halloween episode from Fairly Odd Parents. I actually don't know what Halloween episode you're talking about, but I understand the concept well enough.
These people like me coming back. The world building.
Yeah, I don't know anything about the fucking world of Hollow Knight, and I played the game a few times.
It stood out for its amazing sense of immersion. Now, in 1994, I was busy not being alive, but I've watched enough YouTube video essays to know that this game was a big deal. In case you didn't know, Super Metroid is basically the granddaddy of all Metroidvanias. That's why they're called Metroidvanias. Now in Super Metroid, there are moments that give the player a sense of depth.
Well, I mean, it's also because of Castlevania, but you know, we'll ignore that for now.
Outside of Samus's interactions with it. In the room right before that diabetic crocodile thing, Samus can find the corpse of a random soldier. His inclusion here doesn't change the gameplay at all, but instead gives the player a sense of wonder about the world they are exploring.
You draw us? I am drawing. How you doing, life?
Why was he here in the first place? Did he like...
Actually, so what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna put the video in the corner here so you guys can actually see it. I wasn't going to before, but I think it might be better. So give me 1 second while I do that. Um, down there. Or actually, I don't. Yeah, let's put it up here.
Jazz? Now, finding dead bodies and other random garbage.
The RPG sections is very bare bones. You have attack, equipable abilities, the supers that vary between costumes, and the game is very short. I beat the game in a total of 5 hours, and I did everything I could. I might do a long stream of that if I ever, or a long play of that if I ever get around to it. I want to play a lot of games, but you know, time is time.
Is pretty cool, right? Well, Hollow Knight basically does the same thing about a dozen times.
Life, are you excited for silksong?
Hollow Knight turns Halnest into a living kingdom. You can sense the ancient history of the land when you look at dilapidated structures or giant barred doors. Nothing feels like it was put into the game randomly. There's a reason for it all. Except those reasons aren't the easiest to uncover. Hollow Knight's narrative is buried under layers of NPC dialogue, item descriptions, lore tablets, and even additional content like the Quarrel comic and Fangamer's Wanderer's Journal. These past 3 years have seen an insane amount of research by the Hollow Knight community to make sense of Team Cherry's sprawling world. We've even made it to the point where people are looking at the in-game signs to try and decipher Hallownest's logographic language. In this video, I hope to give you a long and detailed look into the world of Hollow Knight.
Also, the DLC had Grubbins on Ice, which is originally a mod for the game they turned into DLC. I don't know what that is.
Super Smash Bros. Roster speculation videos.
I know the Grubbins, but I don't know what you mean by on ice.
Like the Donkey Kong Country television series, or whatever this was supposed to be. I'm usually making videos about Hollow Knight, and while I am a seasoned Hollow Knight lore expert, I cannot confirm that every musing or theory presented in this video is completely correct. I highly recommend checking out the lore section of the Hollow Knight wiki if you want a more neutral explanation of Hollow Knight's lore. But if you're too lazy to read, then I suggest you sit back, order some Domino's pizza, or just grab a block of cheese from the fridge, and enjoy the mostly complete lore of Hollow Knight. It's a simple fact of life that every human worships a god, be that technology, ideologies, or in rare cases, God. As it turns out,
or in rare cases, God, fair.
Pretty much operate in the same way. From the Mosskin born from the dream of a giant slug, to the emo kids of the ancient civilization who literally worship the darkness, there is no shortage of things to worship in the world of Hollow Knight. Our story begins with a creature very much worthy of worship. A creature born from the carcass of a worm. The carcass can still be found in the Kingdom's Edge, and it's our only good look at what worms actually looked like. At the time Hollow Knight occurs, it is suggested there are no worms left in the world. They were incredibly long creatures that featured little to no limbs. Another more mysterious property of worms was that they had some kind of prescience or foresight. Basically, they could see the future to some capacity. It isn't clear how effective this ability was. Considering how the entire race went extinct, this foresight ability must have been pretty shit. Getting back to this particular worm carcass, it is explained that this worm traveled across the distant mountains and wastelands beyond Hallownest. Once it arrived in Hallownest, the worm died. Except not really. Inside the maw of the carcass sits a pale broken egg, out of which hatched a new form of worm, a being of meager shell. This form of the worm is usually referred to as the Pale King, and he's the character basically responsible for everything that happens in Hollow Knight. The Pale King is a higher being, a type of creature that exists above all others. His body was said to shine with a radiant visage that harmed those who looked upon him. The ultimate goal of the Pale King seemed to be in line with that of other worms. A line from the cryptic Mr. Mushroom reads, "Worms pull bugs into their thrall, till ages pass and kingdoms fall." In other words, it's just in their nature. Dogs wag their tails, cats bury their shit, and worms bring massive amounts of bugs
I think
into
most
their
animals
service in
bury
order
their
to
shit.
form long-standing kingdoms and civilizations. And here in a far corner of the world, the Pale King emerged from the corpse of his former self and began to build his eternal kingdom, Hallownest. There's just one slight problem. There's like people already living there. The area that would eventually become Hallownest was already filled with mantises, bees, moths, spiders, mushrooms, and bush cosplayers. Each of these groups were already operating with their own cultures and societies, and each group had a different interaction with the Pale King. One of the more receptive groups to the arrival of the Pale King were the mushrooms of the fungal wastes. These creatures were able to communicate with one another through one shared mind. The mushrooms viewed this shared mind as a strength, and they were kind of smug dickheads about it. Ultimately, the mushrooms wearily accepted the Pale King's rule, viewing his foresight as a shield to the dangers of the future. Another group living in the fungal wastes is the Mantis tribe. The Mantises have a rich cultural history reaching back to long before the birth of Hallownest. The Mantises are a proud tribe, believing in the importance of proving one's physical strength. The Mantises are fiercely territorial, but will show respect to those who display great power. These Fight Club enthusiasts were led by 4 powerful Mantis Lords, who I guess just kind of sat around waiting for outsiders to challenge them. The Mantis tribe had no interest in the Pale King's kingdom, but the two communities did come to a truce. In exchange for their independence from Hallownest, the Mantis tribe kept the beasts of Deepnest from invading Hallownest. Not sure why they didn't just go out the other exits from Deepnest, but whatever. I'm not an expert on border patrol. I don't work at ICE anymore. Let's move on.
Anymore? Hello?
Now many of the different tribes.
Hold on, when did this video come out? 5 years ago? Okay, alright. He's fine. Don't worry about it.
Kind enough to leave lore tablets behind, detailing pretty much everything we need to know about them. Unfortunately, the bugs of Deepnest.
I mean, that was
didn't
very
do
obviously
that.
a joke, but like,
We know
well,
that the spiders
well,
of Deepnest had a monarchy because
it's all good.
why not? Those are always good, right? Also, within Deepnest are a separate group of spiders that immigrated to Deepnest at some point in the past. This group was known as the Weavers, and they established their own culture and history within Deepnest. They used looms of silk to weave stories, spells, and shields. One thing we know for sure about Deepnest is that they really didn't want anything to do with Hallownest. The struggles of Deepnest Hallownest relations would become painfully clear as time goes on, but for right now, it seems like the two remained fairly isolated from one another. Another section of pre-Hallownest includes Greenpath. Now, as far as we can tell, the mushrooms, mantises, and spiders of Deepnest didn't worship any higher beings. There is this giant mushroom corpse in the fungal core, but I don't think this is a higher being. I mean, who the hell would want to worship a fat-ass mushroom? Fat-ass slugs? Now that's dope. The land we know as Greenpath was created by the higher being known as Un. Un used her great mind to dream the vegetation of Greenpath into the once barren caverns. Un's followers, the Mosskin, were also born out of Un's dream, making her their creator. Greenpath at its height was actually much larger than we see in game. At one point, Greenpath stretched into both modern-day Queen's Garden and possibly Fog Canyon. Greenpath's citizens showed themselves to be a fairly developed society. They built a temple at the Lake of Un in order to worship her, and they even had their own line of defense, with Moss Knights showing proficiency in combat, using nails and shells as weapons. The Law of Un continued to remain in effect even after the Pale King arrived, but it seems like they allowed the king to establish a road through their lands, leading travelers to the heart of Hallownest. Hence the name Greenpath. Yeah, Team Cherry really racked their brains when naming this area, didn't they?
Listen, things don't need to have complicated names.
And while there is no lore,
I don't know if anyone knows this, but like the entire, I don't know if the American audience knows this. I'm sure more people than you'd expect, but for my chat specifically, all the characters in Dragon Ball are just named after things. Goku is obviously Sun Wukong, and you would just say that as Goku. Son Goku. Piccolo is a piccolo, like the instrument. Gohan is rice, or food just in general, depending on the context of the situation. His daughter, Gohan's daughter Pan, is fucking bread. Pan means bread. Videl is an anagram of devil. Hercule's name is Hercule Satan. And of course, his daughter is Videl, which is the anagram of devils, etc., etc. Things don't need to have complicated names. It's much more important about how the story makes you feel, and what happens in the story. Hell, all the fucking all the cities in One Punch Man are just like, aren't they literally just enabled A-Town and B-Town and shit? And all the cities in Mob Psycho are named after spices and shit. Like Mob goes to Salt Middle School.
On how these bees can turn into fucking drills, or how they can ignore all known laws of
In Persona, the school you go to is Shujin, which literally means prison. Anyway.
aviation. We do know how they reacted to the Pale King. These bugs decided to seal their hive off from the rest of the world, with only patrol bees being able to enter and exit the hive. So yeah, the bees are pretty much pointless in this story. And finally we have the Moth Tribe. In-game, the only moth settlement is in the resting grounds, but the tribe might have also inhabited the Crystal Peak at one point. Now as we all know, moths in real life are just complete assholes. As for the moths in Hollow Knight, well, it's a bit complicated.
Moths are not assholes. Don't tell Disney that they said that.
Pacifist group, with few ever choosing to take up a weapon. During the Pale King's reign, the moth race delved amongst dreams and the dead, displaying the importance of remembering those who have passed, as well as learning how to shape dreams themselves. Similar to the Mothskin, the Moth Tribe was born from a higher being known as the Radiance. The Radiance is described as being a light in which the Moth Tribe basked, so she was basically a giant lamp to them. Another important aspect about the Radiance is her ties to dreams and a substance known as Essence. Essence are the remains of wishes and dreams, and are represented in-game by these Dreamcatcher particle effects. Essence can take the form of whispering roots, as well as—
I can feel my allergies freaking out. Give me 1 second. Sorry, I had to get my medicine. I got the medicine.
dream ghosts, both of which are memories taking root in the world. The Radiance appears to be a creature made of essence, but she isn't the only higher being to give off essence. Un has green particles, the Pale King has gray particles, and this sexy character named Grim gives off fiery red particles.
Surprise, surprise, that's
However,
my favorite character and my favorite boss
the main
fight.
god when it comes to dreams, even if other gods also dabble in the dream realm. Getting back to the Moth Tribe, it is their interaction with the Pale King that we need to discuss. Basically, the moths turned their backs on the Radiance completely in order to worship the new light that had appeared, the Pale King's light. So yeah, moths are assholes in this game too. With her tribe forsaking her, the Radiance became a forgotten memory, a remnant of the past, and a thing that's definitely not going to come up again later in this video. And so the Pale King's new kingdom was established, Hallownest. But there is one aspect of Hallownest that we need to discuss. Unfortunately, to better understand this, we're going to have to read some poetry. In Wilds Beyond they speak your name with reverence and regret. For none could tame our savage souls, yet you the challenge met. Under palest watch you taught, we changed. Base instincts were redeemed. A world you gave to bug and beast as they had never dreamed. This is from a poem titled Elegy for Hallownest, written by Motomon the Teacher. The poem appears at the beginning of every playthrough, and hints at what the Pale King and his kingdom offered. Much of the land outside of Hallownest appears to be a wasteland, where bugs survive off of instinct, without the burden of mind. Hallownest somehow taught these bugs and tamed their savagery. Basically, the Pale King changed the instincts of his subjects, and granted them higher thought. To get a better picture of this, let's look at two different characters, Boone and Tuck. These adorable panda bug things give us a clear display of Hallownest's effect. While both appear to be the same species of bug, Boone is dumb as a sack of rocks, struggling to string together words, while Tuck speaks fairly clearly. The main difference between these two characters is that while Boone lives outside of Hallownest, Tuck lives beneath the city's capital. Basically, it appears as though Hallownest is a literal holy ground that raises the intelligence of those who dwell within. The Pale King established a path starting from the kingdom's entrance in King's Pass, winding through Greenpath and the fungal wastes, and finally ending at the massive capital at Hallownest's heart. We now know the capital city as the City of Tears, but that was likely not its original name. The rain that falls down onto the city from the Blue Lake above
Worst area in the
didn't
game,
begin
Royal
until after
Waterways.
the kingdom collapsed. So unless the
think-
capital was originally named,
I think I disagree with you. Royal Waterways was annoying, but that wasn't the worst area in the game for me. What was the worst area in the game? I think the area with all the area you go to with all the spiders, I think that was probably the most annoying. Because those motherfuckers blindsided you after it gets infected. After the top area gets fucking infected, you go down to like that dark area, and fucking everything just starts fucking popping out of the darkness and shit. That was the most annoying area.
by some edgy literature student, the name City of Tears wouldn't have made much sense. The king's motivation for all this appears to have been his desire to be worshipped. The citizens of Hallownest believe that the Pale King created the world.
It's agreed upon that Deepness and Royal Waterways is the worst area in the game. Yeah, Deepness.
Found scattered throughout
Fuck
the kingdom,
Deepness.
and king's idols were created and distributed to followers of the king. Despite the worship, the Pale King often kept himself hidden from his subjects, possibly to hide his blemishes. I mean, if you look at the size of the
You're thinking of
Pale
Forgotten
King
Cross?
to his statue in
Forgotten
the
Cross
ancient
was getting
basin,
infected like
the man
halfway
is
through the game.
clearly
Yeah.
overcompensating. The Pale King's White Palace was also built underneath the city, separating him from his subjects even more so. At the same time, certain powers became shunned in Hallownest, though we don't know for sure if the Pale King had anything to do with this. Lifeblood is a blue liquidy substance that leaves those who drink it feeling refreshed. However, the use of lifeblood was seen as a taboo, and those who used it were demonized as heretics.
I guess I'm a
The use of
heretic.
soul for combat.
Because my best build was making my entire life bar a bunch of fucking lifeblood and just swinging. Just fucking swinging. That was my best strategy in that fucking game. I guess I'm a heretic. Surprise, surprise. Who is surprised by that?
Soul is a sort of life force in Hollow Knight that animates the bodies of living creatures. But some characters are able to control the soul of others to conjure powerful spirits.
Base tank everything.
But aside
Exactly.
from a few exceptions, no citizens of Hallownest ever use this power. However, the Pale King didn't rule alone. There was another higher being in the mix, a being known as the White Lady. The White Lady is a weird
Shit.
ghost-like
White woman jump
being
scare.
that can be found in the modern-day Queen's Gardens. She is encased in a strange cocoon, and we know very little about her. With as much exposition we get for the Pale King, there is next to nothing on the White Lady. But one thing we do know is that she likes to breed. Like, a lot.
Gross.
The White Lady would often retreat to the Queen's Gardens, an area of land once controlled by the Mosskin. How exactly she walked around and actually went places is a lore question too deep for even my expertise. The White Lady is also known as a pale being, along with the Pale King. What exactly are pale beings? Well, we don't know for sure, but they seem to stand out even amongst higher beings as being even more powerful. I know that's a little confusing, so let's try using an example. I'd say that regular higher beings are like a TP-Link Archer C7 AC1750 wireless dual-band gigabit router.
Bro,
while
why are you
pale
selling
beings
these
are
here?
like the Asus RT-AX88U AX6000 dual-band 8X gigabit Wi-Fi router.
Brother.
Under the Pale King, Hallownest underwent a bit of an industrial revolution. He ordered the construction of the stagways, which were used to transport passengers and goods. The Forgotten Crossroads and the storerooms above the City of Tears were used to store goods that traveled along these stagways. The king also ordered the construction of the tramways because
No, did the
literally
Pale
one
King
is
buy
safe from the
cheap
threat of
internet?
automation. A tram was built between the Forgotten Crossroads and the resting grounds. A second tram
The Pale
was built
King's
from
worst
the
offense was
King's
using
Edge
fucking
across
Comcast.
the ancient basin over to Deepnest. And then a third tram was started in Deepnest and attempted to go further into Deepnest. Not sure how useful that would have been to the bugs of Hallownest, but whatever.
Oh, shit.
The Pale King's a smart guy, I'm not gonna question him. But anyway, the Pale King's super smart plan to build a tram in Deepnest ended up getting a few of his tram workers killed. The bugs of Deepnest rejected the Pale King's attempt to build a tram in their territory, further cementing the poor relations shared between the two groups. Aside from convenient fast travel, regular pathways were also used to cart goods around the kingdom. From this was born probably one of the most important groups in Hallownest, and perhaps even all of fiction. An elusive guild of bugs, simply known as the Menderbugs, took to maintaining the various signs scattered throughout Hallownest. From the journal entry of one Menderbug, we can catch a glimpse into their ancient and unknowable minds.
Dear, dear diary, isn't life just the most beautiful thing? Fixing signs, mending posts, let them break, I say. I'm a better mender for all that repairing. I sometimes doubt there's a single bug in all of Hallownest happier than me.
Another example of the Pale King's expanding infrastructure is the Crystal Peak. This area is filled with crystals that grow rapidly along walls, ceilings,
I really like
and
Crystal
even
Peak.
the
Crystal Peak
shells
was
of
very
certain
pretty.
bugs. These crystals were considered valuable to the bugs of Hallownest, resulting in large-scale mining efforts. We don't actually see the crystals used anywhere else in Hallownest, but they are said to contain a sort of energy. The crystals are also said to sing, if you listen very carefully.
Alright, you got me. So do
In terms
I.
of military, Hallownest's first line of defense appeared to be a group simply known as the Five Great Knights. The members of this esteemed coalition were Ogrim, Hagamol, Zamir, Drya, and Isma. For being so important, most of the information about these knights
The reason why
has
Hollow
been
Knight
lost to time.
got infected was because the
Ogrim is
shitty
the
internet
knight
would
we know
always
the
get
most
disconnected
about,
from an online
since he's
game
one of the few
mid-match.
knights still alive during the events
I think that
of
was
the
my.
game.
I think my favorite was the
Ogrim
Hive. I also
expressed
hate the
a great
Hive.
amount of loyalty towards the king, and he maybe
It looks
had
pretty,
something
but fuck
going
that
on
area.
with Isma, but we really don't know. Hagamol was known for his sense of humor and his soft-spoken voice, but at the same time, he was also dummy thick. Mysterious Zamir arrived in Hallownest from a serene land, bringing with her a collection of delicate flowers. At some point, she also got into a relationship with a mantis, but not just any mantis, a daughter of one of the mantis lords. So yeah, it seems like these great knights were slaying in more ways than one. All we really know about Drya is that she was fierce, caring, and wise. As for Isma, she was described as being kind.
Can't believe this
She
game
also
is
appears
woke.
to be
There's
some
gay
sort of
bugs.
weird plant life form, but there's no information on where she's from or what her powers were. The Five Great Knights play an important role in the Champion's Call, the Knotted Grove, and the Battle of the Black Worm. We have no idea what these events were or how they affected Hallownest, but they sound cool nonetheless. During Hallownest's reign, there was another strange area that seemed to exist separate from the Pale King's rule. Carved out of the corpse of an ancient bug, an area called the Colosseum of Fools was constructed, and it was a destination for
That's probably my
warriors
favorite
from
area
outside
to
Hallownest.
just run shit in.
The
I
sole
like the
purpose
Colosseum.
for fighting in the Colosseum appeared to be simply for glory, with a mysterious figure known as the Lord Fool overseeing the combat. We don't know when the Colosseum was constructed or if the Pale King was involved, but one of his servants, the Pale Lurker, became a champion in the Colosseum, perhaps indicating the Pale King's approval. And finally, there was the Royal
I wonder how
Watercourse,
many people actually put this game down because the painter and nailsmith are gay for each other.
This area saw the rise of a species of parasite-like creatures
I'd
called
assume
the Flukes.
not many people.
The Flukes spawned from the Fluke Marm, a giant monster with cavities in which tinier
Also, fuck this
flukes
thing.
live. There really isn't too much lore involved with the Flukes, but
Fuck
I
'em.
do need to point out that the Fluke Marm is canonically a MILF. Like, that's not even debatable. The sky is blue, 2 + 2 = 4, and we all want to fuck this thing.
Well,
And so
that's when
this
I
was
said
the
fuck
kingdom
this
of
thing.
Hallownest at its
That's not
height.
what I meant.
Hallownest was a vast kingdom connected by a network of stagways and tram stations. The bugs of Hallownest mourned their dead in the resting grounds, engaged in commerce using Geo, the de facto currency of the region, and a thriving capital located in the middle of the kingdom. The Pale King had succeeded in crafting a full-blown society, but we all know there are pitfalls to living in a society. As a suspiciously knowledgeable hunter points out in his journal,
Why do you hate the MILF?
the Pale King
It was
had
just annoying to
created a
fight.
population of
It's also
weak
kinda
and
gross.
pathetic creatures. The bugs of Hallownest did not hunt for their own food and had become complacent with their comfort. This is even more obvious with the east wing of the capital. These greedy members of Hallownest's high society became complete cowards, obsessed with riches and plum from excess wealth. The bugs living in Hallownest Prime looked quite different than the instinctive simpletons they once were. Their savagery
Yeah,
had
wasn't
been
there that
replaced
bitch
with
that stole our money?
intelligence, and through that intellect, they gave the Pale King the devotion and service he desired. And while there were a few snags along the way, they were shining times for the king and his subjects. Resting at the threshold of Hallownest is a strange lore tablet, proclaiming Hallownest to be the last and only civilization. It calls Hallownest an eternal kingdom. This appears to have been the Pale King's goal, for Hallownest to stand against a wasted world as a final beacon for civilization. And that was the Pale King's ultimate folly, to think that he could succeed where so many others had failed before. Long before the Pale Kings or the Barry Bensons of the world, the land of Hallownest was controlled by an ancient caste. Hints of Hallownest history.
Fun fact, if you have Grimchild equipped with Millabelle, when she has her bank open, it actually attacks her. That's funny. By the time I got to the Grimchild, that had long since passed. That is funny.
History are littered throughout the land, with the most notable examples being the soul totems and arcane eggs. One sect of these ancient bugs didn't worship a god like the Pale King or any lord, but instead a dark and mysterious substance known as the Void. This ancient caste once also tried to lay claim to the entire land of Hallownest, but they too failed. In his quest to conquer all of Hallownest, the Pale King had made an enemy long forgotten, an enemy that was about to be remembered. I mentioned earlier that the Moth tribe entirely forgot about the Radiants in order to worship the Pale King, but that isn't quite true. Memories of her still lingered, and hushed whispers of faith kept the Radiants alive. At the summit of the Crystal Peak, a location known as Hallownest Crown, a strange collection of glyphs can be found. Joining these glyphs is a statue of the Radiants, presiding over the kingdom below. This old summit is the sole standing shrine left to the Radiants. This was built in order to keep the memory of the Radiants alive. The Radiants' light began to appear in the dreams of Hallownest citizens. This light manifested itself in an infection that ravaged through the kingdom's tunnels. Those infected would fall into a deep
so that's
sleep
why that happened.
and awaken with broken minds. Some of the lesser bugs tried to resist the Radiants' light, which only resulted in them being consumed by it even more so. Many infected bugs lost their wills and began attacking bugs that weren't infected. The infection also twisted the bodies of its hosts, causing them to bloat and occasionally develop orange cysts on their bodies. For many victims, they were reverted back to their basic instincts, carrying out the duties they once fulfilled in life, but now as mindless slaves. Those caught up in the infection were linked into the Radiant's hive mind, allowing her to control their bodies if needed. As the infection spread across Hallownest, many groups looked to solutions to fight off the Radiant's light. The gates to the City of Tears were closed in an attempt to keep the infection from reaching the city. The stagways were also shut down at some point, and many of the stags eventually died out, but some took more proactive efforts against the infection. The scholars of the Soul Sanctum decided to harness the power of Soul in an attempt to fight the infection. This resulted in the deaths of hundreds of bugs, whose souls were sucked out and injected into the bodies of the scholars. Their goal was to achieve some kind of pure focus, which would somehow protect them from plagues of the mind. The scholars' leader, the Soul Master, was driven mad by the sheer power of Soul, and his entire sect failed.
That was my first hard limit chat.
But hey, at least they took as many innocent people down with them as they could. The Mantis tribe, showing a stronger will than the common bug,
that thing fucked me up for a while.
Off the infection. However, one of the 4 Mantis Lords turned against his sisters. He and his followers took in the infection willingly, as it gave them more strength and courage. At some point during all this, the Traitor Lord and his followers were exiled from the Mantis village, eventually taking up residence in the Queen's Gardens. The Traitor Lord's daughter ended up dying at some point. This is the same Mantis that was in a relationship with Zamir, one of the 5 Great Knights, but the Mantises rejected their union because of Zamir's outsideness. As a gamer, this type of prejudice is all too familiar, and honestly, it makes me sick. With the 5 Great Knights completely useless to fight against the infection, the Pale King devised his own scheme. A scheme involving a strange substance known as Void. As I mentioned earlier, the Pale King's White Palace was built in an area called the Ancient Basin. But his castle wasn't the only noteworthy thing down there. At the bottom of the ancient basin was the entrance to a pit known as the Abyss. Within the Abyss was a lake composed of void. The Pale King realized that this void could be given form, as evidenced by an imprint of such deep within the Abyss, possibly left there by the ancient civilization that predated Hallownest. The Pale King devised a workshop in his palace, where he placed void in armor shells imbued with soul, creating servants known as King's Molds and Wing Molds. These void creatures were somehow imprinted with the desire of the Pale King, so that they would serve him. It isn't clear when the Pale King started making these creatures. There is evidence to imply that even common bugs were aware of King's Molds, but the point is, the Pale King turned to the void in order to create another creature, one that he believed could contain the Radiance and her infection.
They're not
He
our
tried to
protagonist?
create a pure vessel. The Radiance's infection needs its host to have a will and a mind in order to enslave it. A pure vessel would be a creature made of void designed to lack those features. The Pale King believed that by harnessing the void inside a pure vessel, he would be able to stop the infection and keep Hallownest lasting eternal. But his method for creating this—
All right, before he goes on to say it, the way that I understand it is that Hornet was like supposed to be a pure vessel, but she actually has a fucking will, and our protagonist is in fact a pure vessel. I mentioned this before, if someone has gotten this far, but I did play Hollow Knight, but I paid basically zero attention to the story.
so-called pure vessel was incredibly cruel. This is where the White Lady and her King Kong-sized libido come into play. These two higher beings engaged in a union of some kind, resulting in the creation of several eggs that were dropped down into the abyss. There, the void seeped into these eggs, corrupting the offspring of the Pale King and the White Lady. This act resulted in the creation of the vessels. The vessels are not technically considered to be alive. They are shells created from the Pale King and White Lady that have been filled with the void. Within each vessel is a shade, a completely void being hidden behind the face of the vessel. Vessels are also non-gendered, I guess because they're dead or something.
They're not really
I'm not sure if
alive.
that's how that works, but
Yes,
whatever.
I'm dead. That's why.
not an
That's why
expert on
I'm
this
not
kind of
binary,
things.
chat.
I don't work at ICE anymore. Thousands
That's
of vessels
crazy.
were created during this process, but only one was chosen as the pure vessel. This particular vessel, chosen by the Pale King, was deemed the Hollow Knight, and was taken away to the White Palace. But I want to take a bit of a closer look at this part of the story. There are a number of questions and theories surrounding this moment that I really want to dig into. The big question surrounding this moment is, why was the Hollow Knight chosen over any other vessel? One common theory is that the Pale King took these vessels back to the White Palace and evaluated them using his giant collection of buzzsaws. This theory is probably the least likely explanation. It kinda exists just to explain the buzzsaws, which is quite the mystery, I'll admit, but doesn't really mesh with the vessels very well. How does being good at Super Meat Boy prove that you are a worthy vessel? And while thinking about
It
logistics in a
proves
game
that you
about
are that
magic
nigga.
bugs is
Simple.
never a good idea, how exactly did the Pale King transfer these thousands of vessels to his palace without characters like the Dung Defender finding out? So this means that the Pale King probably made his decision without taking any of the vessels out of the abyss. So how did the Pale King make his evaluation? I think the
That
best
bug. I'm that
explanation
bug,
comes
G.
from a theory I originally heard from a user named
I put the G in
Golden
bug,
Flower
nigga.
Fan. Basically,
I gotta write that down. I gotta write that down. That might be a fucking. That might be a fucking. That might be. That might be a YouTube. One of the titles for the VOD. I put the B. I put the fucking B. Put the G in Doug. And bug. Dyslexia. There. People who have beat the White Palace are objectively better than people who haven't. That's crazy. Can't believe you would say that in my chat. What's wrong with you?
vessels were hatched down at the bottom of the abyss, and the first one to make it to the top was chosen by the Pale King.
I don't think I've ever been
In a
to
memory
Super
of
Meat
this
Boy
event,
level yet.
We see vessels falling from above back to
I think there's a lot of unlocks, right? That's locked behind a bunch of shit. I'm pretty positive. Yeah, I'm pretty positive that's locked behind a bunch of shit. So it makes sense if you have it.
down into the pit of the abyss. Perhaps these vessels weren't being cast down into the abyss, but fell while trying to escape out of it. The lore tablet outside the abyss appears to support this theory. It reads, "Our pure vessel has ascended. Beyond lies only the refuse and regret of its creation. We shall enter that place no longer." This tablet was likely written right after the Hollow Knight was chosen, considering that is when the entrance to the abyss was sealed off. The tablet proclaims that the pure vessel has ascended, or in other words, climbed out of the abyss. And while cut content should never be considered canon, I would just like to point out that an earlier version of this tablet, found in the game's code, was even more explicit about this. It read, "From below, our pure vessel has ascended." But how does making it to the top of the abyss first prove that the Hollow Knight is somehow a perfectly hollow vessel? Well, I think this whole concept might just be a misconception. What if the Hollow Knight wasn't any different from the other vessels? All the vessels were made in the exact same way after all. The idea that the Hollow Knight was somehow more hollow than the other vessels comes from the fact that there were so many vessels created in the first place. If they only needed one, then why create so goddamn many? I mean, this is like Octomom on steroids. Well, these are bugs we're talking about, so it would make sense that multiple offspring would come from one egg. And it might have been a
There's an achievement for Custom Quest that's playing the game on Christmas, and its name is "'Tis Not the Season." I would have thought they would have been like the Nightmare on Christmas, the Nightmare of Christmas, Nightmare in Christmas, Nightmare Before Christmas. I couldn't remember that. Nightmare Before Christmas. I would have thought that the achievement would have been Nightmare Before Christmas related. But "'Tis Not the Season" is a good title too.
Caution to produce multiple vessels in hopes that at least one would be able to successfully escape the abyss. Now another explanation could be that the Pale King just yeeted other vessels that made it to the top first, after determining that they weren't hollow, which would better explain why so many were created. Ultimately, the exact details aren't super important, but I do find it interesting how many different interpretations can be pulled from this part of the lore. After the Hollow Knight was chosen, the Pale King sealed the doorway to the abyss, leaving the discarded vessels to rot away in darkness. These actions were not taken lightly by the Pale King or the White Lady. Both participants expressed shame in what they did, but saw no other option to save the kingdom. But the vessels weren't the only poor saps sealed away in the abyss. There's also a lighthouse that was built on top of a naturally formed spire, its light shining down on an ocean of abyss below. Inside was one of the Pale King's royal retainers, who was left in charge of keeping the lighthouse turned on. So this brave soul was willingly sealed in a dark and dangerous tomb for the rest of his life, just so he could not pull a lever. Well, at least he was living with purpose. With the abyss sealed and the Hollow Knight chosen, the Pale King's plan was beginning to come together. The Hollow Knight was raised and trained to prime form, causing it to grow several times its original size. We don't know exactly why this happened, but I guess the Hollow Knight is just a grower and not a shower.
Hey yo.
We know that the Hollow Knight was trained to use a nail, but why was this even necessary? One possible explanation is that the Hollow Knight needed to protect itself in case an intruder tried to kill it. You know, like the player. Or perhaps this was important in the process of containing the Radiance. Unfortunately, the details of that are never fully explained. The Hollow Knight might have somehow focused the Radiance inside itself, but Team Cherry gives us no explanation of how that might have worked. But that still wasn't enough for the Pale King. Additional seals were needed in order to protect the Hollow Knight's physical body while the Radiance was trapped inside of it. To achieve this, the Pale King sought the help of 3 particular bugs, who would later be known as the Dreamers: Lurien the Watcher, Motomon the Teacher, and Hera the Beast. Lurien is definitely the most mysterious of the 3 Dreamers. He lived in the Watcher's Spire in the City of Tears. From there, Lurien watched over the city with his telescope. Lurien was a pretty big fan of the king, so it probably took little convincing for him to lie down for him. Lurien might also be tied to another strange incident that occurred in the City of Tears. Hidden on some of Lurien's lore tablets are images of jars, the same jars that can be found stockpiled in the Tower of Love. This building sits on the outskirts of the city, and is the setting of one of the most bizarre bosses in the game, The collector. The collector is a
the Hollow Knight keeps that thing on. I got this nail with me at all times. I keep that thing on me, homie.
void construct that appears to have been made from the same mold used to create the king's molds. But the collector is unique because, well, Good grief, he's naked! The collector stayed in the Tower of Love with a noble bug who likely owned the establishment. In the tower, a number of bugs can be found captured in jars, implying that these two were tasked with collecting these creatures.
The collector is weird, but a cool
However,
fight.
the collector somehow became obsessed with grubs, creating a map to keep track of grubs it captured in jars, as well as keeping a strange
I also like how
shrine
fucked up the music
displaying a
here
grub
is.
in the style of the Vitruvian Man. Eventually, the bug staying with the collector decided to lock it inside the Tower of Love, and fled to the Queen's Gardens, where it died, likely due to overexposure to the void. Despite being locked up in the tower, the collector is still spotted by the hunter at some point, which either means this only happened recently, or the hunter.
Weez, you're East Coast, right? Okay, stop me when it gets to 6 o'clock, because I need to prepare for anime club. So when it gets to 6, tell me to stop.
Has been farting around in Hallownest for a long ass time. We have no idea what these creatures were trying to do. It's implied that the collector was trying to preserve the creatures of Hallownest, perhaps trying to protect them from the spread of the infection, but we don't know where the collector's obsession with grubs originated, and while Larian does seem connected to all of this, we don't know how involved he was with this operation, or what its end goal exactly was. Motomon the teacher lived in the teacher's archives.
That's like in 2 hours and 6 minutes.
Built atop
Yeah.
a lake of acid in the Fog Canyon. The lower half of her body consists of tentacles, making her a popular subject for the thriving Hollow Knight R34 community.
What the fuck?
The archives
They're bugs,
of the
dog.
Fog Canyon as a whole are also filled with these strange Metroid knockoffs. These creatures are likely related to Motomon in some way. They could be her live offspring, her test tube babies, or possibly even her shit. Motomon uses futuristic cathode ray tube things to store information about Hallownest. Several terminals
What's
in the
good,
teacher's
Xenocycling? How you
archive
doing?
go into detail about the Pale King's plan to defeat the Radiants.
You underestimate how horny people are for these bugs?
Of what she was
Okay, listen. When I was getting the reference art for drawing this picture of Hornet, I saw some shit, all right? I'm not underestimating anything. I just don't understand it. I don't get it. I don't understand. Although I think the funniest image was that one of Hornet being dummy thick and fucking the Hollow Knight try to get under her skirt with the camera. I think that was the funniest one. Love the art. Thank you. It'll be the thumbnail for the first VOD of Silksong when that comes out.
taking part in. Finally, the Pale King sought the help of Hera the Beast, the Queen of Deepnest. Now, as I mentioned earlier, relations between Hallownest and Deepnest were kinda not great. Unlike the other two dreamers, Hera needed to be convinced in order to help the Pale King. Hera would eventually agree to become a dreamer, in exchange for a child. The Pale King agreed, and the two engaged in a dalliance, which is a fancy way of saying they totally
fucked.
boned.
Yeah, they fucked.
The White Lady was okay with this arrangement. In fact, she might have been watching from the closet. The motive behind Hera's request is never elaborated on, but it appears as though the King of Deepnest was dead at this point. Hera
Holy
was a
shit.
common bug, so perhaps she desired the Pale King's pale seed so that her child could be of high birth. The bargain between Hera and the Pale King resulted in the birth of Hornet. She became known as the gendered
Oh.
child because, unlike the Pale King's other children, Hornet was not hollowed out by the Abyss. Hera and Hornet spent little time together, as Hera had to make good on her end of the bargain. And so the three dreamers were put to rest. Through their actions, a seal was placed over the black egg, prohibiting
So
entrance
Hornet's
into the chamber.
Wait, so that means Hornet is literally the redheaded stepchild. Ironically, reminds me of the theme because it feels appropriate because it reminds me of my friend's death. There were a lot. That was a roller coaster of a sentence.
these dreamers also had their own protection. At the base of Lurian's spire, the Watcher Knights guarded access to their master's body.
It happened just
Watermelon's
now. Are
body was
you
protected-
okay? Are you good?
by a giant jellyfish named Umu. On top of this,
All right. Well, I mean, I'm sorry to hear that, man. Hopefully I could be of some comfort to you. Happy your friend was well loved, and they rest in peace, I guess. Jesus. Sorry to hear that.
Motomon entrusted her servant Quirrell with a mask which would be required to break an additional seal she had placed over herself. So she basically is double wrapping herself. As for Hera, we're not really sure what protected her, since it is never actually seen in-game. We don't know where this creature is hiding, but whoever it is, they really suck at their job. Now there appears to be one more element to the Pale King's plan, involving the Weavers. Hidden away in the Weaver's Den is an incomplete seal of binding, woven from silk. This design prominently features the Hollow Knight's head, and can be found in the White Palace, as well as blocking the exit during the Hollow Knight fight. Silk spools created by the Weavers can be found in the Stag Station in Deep Nest, as well as the Stag Station next to the White Palace. These spools can also be found in the Pale King's workshop. We know that the Weavers were closely tied to Hera and Hornet, so their actions might have been a part of the deal between the Pale King and Hera. Once the Hollow Knight was ready.
Thank you. I'm also shaking because he was my age. Saw the hospital vehicle with him just gone. One of the people I knew, I found out died earlier this year, and it really shook me up too. I wasn't necessarily sad about it, but like it fucked me up a little bit because they were also my age. And my dad told me that as you get older, you're just gonna have to start seeing people die, and it's gonna be weird. Probably didn't come for you at all. It was just something that connected in my mind, and I don't know. I think it helped me, but I don't. Maybe probably want to help you. I'm not good at this, you can tell.
The radiance was somehow channeled into the vessel, which was then placed inside of a giant black egg located in the Forgotten Crossroads. This egg was built to sustain the Hollow Knight, and itself appears to be fashioned from void. The Hollow Knight was chained up, and the entrance to the black egg was locked behind a powerful seal created by the three dreamers. Initially, this convoluted plan actually worked, and the infection was successfully contained. Memorials to the Hollow Knight and the Dreamers were erected in the City of Tears and the Resting Grounds. But this is the part of the story where things get a little bit hazy. By the time these
Most likely a supplement. How do I say PG? Just that was fun enough. I'm sorry to hear that too. You probably wouldn't say that, to be honest, but I mean, yeah, that sucks.
statues were constructed, citizens had taken to writing on parchment woven from spider silk, which was all destroyed when water started pouring down onto the city. We don't know how long the Hollow Knight was able to completely contain the infection. Bugs from Dirtmouth used to go to the Temple of the Black Egg to pray, saying they felt at peace within the walls. But after a while, they stopped going, perhaps indicating that the infection was beginning to leak out again. The infectious air continued to seep through Halnest for years, eventually even reaching the deepest parts of the kingdom. As it turns out, the Pale King's pure vessel wasn't quite so pure after all. The Hollow Knight had been tarnished by an idea instilled. While the game never explicitly tells us what that idea was, it does hint strongly at what it might be. Hidden away in the White Palace is a memory showing the Hollow Knight and the Pale King sharing a moment. The Hollow Knight might have developed a parental bond to the Pale King. And who could blame it? The Pale King is a pretty great dad after all. You know, if you ignore the infanticide and everything. Remember those smug mushroom dickheads? Well, it turns out their trust in the Pale King was a complete mistake. That shared mind isn't looking too good now, is it? In the fungal core, the corpse of a giant mushroom lies dormant. Its final thoughts were, "Pale worm, what good to see a demise unavoidable?" This could imply that the Pale King always knew that his kingdom was doomed. All he could do was delay the inevitable. This is likely the moment when Hallownest, as it once was, entirely collapsed. The Hollow Knight had not completely stopped the infection, and while it may have taken a while, Hallownest was eventually brought low. It's at this point that characters and areas begin to resemble as we know them in-game. When it became clear that the Hollow Knight was not able to contain the Radiance, the Pale King resorted to his final plan. He fucked off, hiding himself, his White Palace, and his Pale Court in the Dream World. At this point, all of the furniture in the palace was covered under white sheets, similar to how people in the real world cover their furniture while away on long trips. The palace was also
Never got that.
completely
Never
covered
understood
with
why that was a
thorns and
thing.
buzzsaws, similar to how people in the real world cover their houses with thorns and buzzsaws.
You know.
The Pale King would eventually pass away while sitting on his throne in the White Palace. There's no confirmation on what killed him, but there are a few things to consider. The throne room is incredibly dark compared to the rest of the palace, and the particle effects and ambient track in this room are identical to that of the Abyss. All of the king's molds surrounding the Pale King are dead. The ancient basin itself also has become stained with the presence of void, as it can be seen as high as the rundown elevator shaft leading back to the city. Remember that bug that was sealed away in the Abyss to make sure the lighthouse wasn't turned off? Well, the lighthouse was turned off. I guess that whole living with purpose thing is a crock of shit after all. It seems as though the Sea of Void itself actually convinced this bug to betray his king and turn off the lighthouse. Now I know what you're thinking. Exactly how conscious is the Void? Is the Void able to think for itself? Can it form strategies? Does it host a podcast? Well, according to this Chozo statue ripoff, the Void is powerful, but not unified.
But when I played this game, I hadn't played Metroid yet. So now that I'm looking at it, yeah, that's just the Chozo statue.
So while it can thrash around at things that come near it, or call out in unison to turn off a light, it's not a single conscious being. Getting back to the Pale King, one could argue that the Void might have played a role in his ultimate demise, and I've argued that viewpoint in the past, but we have to remember that there isn't enough evidence to know for sure. As an expert lawyer and a good friend of mine, Johnny Cochran, once said, "Any evidence that the Void was involved in the Pale King's death is circumstantial. My name is Johnny Cochran." Just above the White Palace, the bugs in the City of Tears weren't faring much better. Even if we ignore the fact that the infection was still around, there were other issues that helped lead to the city's downfall. Due to the gates being sealed, some bugs resorted to cannibalism in order to avoid starvation. And there's also that metric fuckton of corpses lining the walls of the Soul Sanctum. When all was said and done, the only citizen left standing is Eternal Emelita.
Never seen a Metroid playthrough, just snippets of Dark Samus. I've played
The White Lady
I've played all the Metroid games. Well, all the mainline ones, if you want to look through the archive channel for that.
ends up in a cocoon deep within the Queen's gardens. She decided to place bindings on herself in order to keep her from spreading her seed. She claims that this is because of the shame she feels in helping the Pale King create the vessels, but honestly, it's probably just her kink. The White Lady also diminished her power, possibly as a way to keep herself hidden from unwanted visitors. Outside her cocoon, Dryia stood guard, protecting her queen from the violent traitor mantises. Dryia is eventually killed off by these bugs, which is actually pretty pathetic if you think about it. I mean, we're talking like the Netgear WPN824N N150 wireless router pathetic.
Oh yes, I totally know what that means.
Dying pathetically, let's move on to Hagamol. Hagamol held the city crest, a key used to open one of the gates to the City of Tears. At some point, Hagamol's armor shell was stolen by a maggot. Now, maggots were generally looked down upon and forced to do menial labor. They were incredibly weak, and basically deserved all of the discrimination they got. But this one maggot decided to turn the tide, so he stole Hagemol's shell so that he could defend his downtrodden brothers.
Cat, you would not understand the pain that
His
I'm having
actions
right
weren't
now. Holy fuck, can I get this line correct? I hate it here so much. Holy fuck. Why do bugs have squishable heads? Why do those bugs have squishable heads? Because they're round. Once again, he certainly said word. Those are definitely words that came out of his mouth. Does not mean I understood them. Sorry, I really need to get this fucking line right. It is bothering me. Ah! Fuck. All right. Sorry.
Motivated by the infection, but instead was the result of how hierarchical caste systems will always lead to revolution from the working class, and that true freedom can only be achieved blah blah blah, capitalism is bad, subscribe to my Patreon. Ogra moved to the Royal Waterways.
Bro, you can't do that.
Started
You can't say capitalism is bad and then promote capitalism. You can't do that.
living in shit. Changing his
Yeah, I'm
name
drawing
to
a
Dung
character
Defender.
from the
Now,
game
I
that he's
love
talking about in the
wallowing
corner
shit
over
as
there.
much as the next guy, but you'd have to really love shit to put up with living with the flukes. The Dung Defender kept an unwavering sense of duty and loyalty to the king, and love for his fellow knights. So much so that he made shit statues of them. How nice. Ogrim acted as the defender of the pipeways, as well as Isma's Grove. A section of the Royal Waterways became filled with acid, and in the middle of it all rests Isma's corpse, which has been overcome by plant life. Isma is likely the one responsible for this acid blight, but we have no idea what happened to her. Hornet's whereabouts during this time are fairly mysterious. We know that she departed Deep Nest and didn't return until the events of the game. At some point, she took to guarding Halnest from intruding warriors, as well as the cast-off shell in the Kingdom's Edge. Despite the Kingdom's woes at large, fortunately this fate did not befall one of the fandom's favorite characters. The Menderbugs continued to fix the broken signs and wayposts of Halnest. From a diary entry, we can see that one Menderbug in particular had found himself on the precipice of a long and loving relationship.
Hello again, diary. Not long now until the next Minder Bash. For us stealthy types, we're a riotous bunch when we get together, and Minderberry kept flashing me that smile. It might be time to muster my courage and act on it. I love my home and my life, but sharing it with another? Why, that'd be the berry on top.
Greenpath also underwent some changes during this time. The Mosskin were waiting for Un's call, which would bring them back into the dream they were originally born from. But for some reason, Un's strength deteriorated. We don't know why this happened exactly. Was it due to the White Lady claiming part of her kingdom? Was it somehow due to the infection? Some Mosskin believe that Un went into hiding, but it appears as though Un is, in fact, calling to her children. But many of the Mosskin are unable to hear her call. Instead, many Mosskin seem to have taken the Radiance's infection into their leaves, which might explain why Greenpath became overgrown with vegetation despite Un's deteriorating powers. Mossy vagabonds even openly chose to forsake Un and worship the Radiance. Another tribe to be screwed over by the Radiance is the Hive, which fell to the infection after the death of their leader, Hive Queen Vespa. But it appears as though this had little effect on their civilization. The Radiance's hive mind was already familiar to the bees, since the hive probably operated under something similar already. So in other words, the hive probably made out the best in this whole situation. Let's turn our attention back to the moths. After all, it's their god that keeps killing everybody. Well, the moth tribe didn't fare too well actually, as pretty much the entire tribe died out. The only known survivor is the seer. Despite the loss of her tribe, the seer continued to tend to the graves in the resting grounds, while also waiting the arrival of the Wielder, a mysterious being that her tribe has dreamt of for a while. In the Kingdom's Edge, the land became covered in ash molting off of the worm's decomposing corpse. The Colosseum of Fools continued to thrive. The Lord Fool passed away at some point, but nobody really seems to notice or even care. The fools inside the Colosseum were infected, but still seem to have maintained control over themselves. It seems possible that these bugs took in the infection willingly, similar to the Traitor Lord and his followers.
Focus.
This would have given them an edge in combat, similar to using steroids, but without the whole shrinking testicles thing. However, even the Traitor Lord and his followers went mad, so what makes these fools any more special? As for the Pale King's champion, the Pale Lurker, well, she just went the normal kind of insane. There appears to have been another unforeseen event with the Pale King's plan. When the Hollow Knight was originally chosen,
Alright, what do we think, chat? I'm debating on if I want to do anything else with this before I start coloring it in. Hard guess. I'm gonna assume that you just mean hard guess. You like it. Um, let me look at something. Actually, I'll show you what I'm about to look at. So naturally, what I did, I made the little cloth that she's covered in look look tattered, and so I'm actually gonna look at a reference to this. Jesus Christ. That's also tiny. Tiny, tiny. Like I'm using my fucking. It's tiny for you guys for sure, but like I'm using my TV. So if I'm saying it's tiny, it's fucking tiny. But I did get to see what I wanted to see. I wanted to see if there were any like wispy parts coming off of it, and there were not.
the door to the abyss was sealed, trapping the discarded vessels within. But apparently, some vessels didn't get the memo. Vessel corpses can be found littered throughout the kingdom. There's one in the ancient basin, one in Greenpath, and several trapped in Nosk's lair in Deep Nest. Another vessel that escaped from the abyss is the player character, the Knight. The exact details on how the vessels escaped the abyss is unclear. There are indications that they might have slipped into Deep Nest through some old passageway, given void influences in part of the area, and all the corpses found in Nosk's lair. At some point, all entrances to Hollow Nest were closed off, with the old well and Earthmouth being the only way to sneak back in. Despite this, several people have wormed their way into the kingdom, with few ever returning. Characters like Relic Seeker Lem seemed content to just pillage artifacts from the ruined kingdom, but other bugs seemed interested in something greater. In the Howling Cliffs rests the corpse of a member of the Grim Troop. The task of this bug appears to have been to seek out Hollow Nest, so that the troop might be summoned to the kingdom in the future. The Grim Troop are basically a group of bugs that serve a higher being known as the Nightmare Heart. The troop keeps the heart alive by feeding on the nightmares of fallen kingdoms. This process also involves sacrificing the Troop Master to his own child because...
Why not? Why
Look at
not?
this cool-ass boss battle. Another important group that traveled to Hallownest are the God Seekers. After being
Oh, I
abandoned
didn't
by their
convert it
old
yet, that's
gods, the gods of thunder and the gods of rain, these bugs left their home in the land of storms, seeking out a new god to worship. The God Seekers looked to gods to save them from their own silent mind. While traveling through the wastelands, the God Seekers constructed devices called God Tuners, which helped them seek out new gods. Through this device, they were able to detect the lingering power of the Pale King and find their way to Hallownest. When they arrived, however, the God Seeker was forced into hibernation. She was encased in a strange sarcophagus-like cocoon, which was itself chained up with a lock. It's not clear how this forced hibernation worked, seeing as the cocoon appears to have been made by the God Seeker herself. As for who put the cocoon in chains, I think the most likely candidate is the Dung Defender, considering how the God Seeker's cocoon is found in the junk pit in the waterways, an area the Dung Defender has tasked himself with protecting. This was the general picture of Hallownest after the Hollow Knight was sealed inside the Temple of the Black Egg. The kingdom was stuck in a kind of stasis, with the Pale King civilization destroyed and the Radiance unable to break free from her chains. The Pale King was rebelling against nature, trying to keep his work standing indefinitely. The stasis over Hallownest held for an age. How long is that exactly? Well, we have no idea. As I'm sure you've noticed, there really isn't a timeline for anything that happens in this game. We also have no idea how long any of these bugs can actually live. Elderbug wasn't around to see the stagways open, but we know several other characters were, implying that Elderbug is probably one of the youngest characters in the whole game. But this stasis over Hallownest wasn't going to last forever. At some point, the Radiance erupted out of the Hollow Knight, cracking its shell and releasing a loud and powerful roar. The amount of infection leaking out of the Hollow Knight became even greater. The many corpses that lined the roads and cities of the kingdom sprang to life with the amplified power of the infection. This strengthened infection prompted the departure of the Weavers back to their old home. Now this old home might actually be Farloom, the kingdom in which Hollow Knight Silksong takes place. But the amount of knowledge we have about Silksong right now is pathetic, so I'm not saying that's confirmed or anything. This is also around the time that Quirrell arrives back in Hallownest. His memory of Motomon appears to have been clouded due to his time outside of Hallownest. These events are depicted in the Quirrell prequel comic, which also shows an image of the Hollow Knight with a pre-cracked shell. This could mean that Quirrell's arrival happens roughly the same time the Hollow Knight's shell cracks. At around the same time Quirrell arrives in Hallownest, we also see the arrival of the player character, who is commonly referred to as the Knight. The Knight was one of the lucky vessels that was able to make its way out of the abyss. Somehow the Knight ended up
Did you guys see that
venturing
thing
beyond
that
Hallownest
people
and
wanted
into the wilds
Hornet or
beyond.
the
It's
Knight
implied
for
that the Knight
Smash
was called
Bros
to Hallownest
when that
by
was
either
relevant?
the sealed Hollow Knight or the Radiance within. Regardless, once the Knight shows up and yeets itself off this cliff, the actual game of Hollow Knight finally begins. Now, there's a lot of details we could get into. Hallownest is full of NPCs and bosses, each with their own stories to tell. But to be honest, I don't think we need to go through all of them, since their stories are relatively straightforward. For example, let's look at the Brooding Moloch. So why is the Brooding Moloch brooding? Because all its friends are dead. And there you go, that's the lore for the Brooding Moloch. Also, it's the only character in the game with a visible asshole. Now, did you really need me to explain that to you? Probably not. So instead, I'm just going to talk about the interactions relating to Hollow Knight's main story. The Knight is eventually noticed by Hornet, who lures it deep into Greenpath. There, Hornet attempts to kill the Knight, claiming that she knows what it would try to do. At this point, Hornet views the Knight as being too weak. After the fight, Hornet can be found in the City of Tears, next to the statue of the Hollow Knight. Hornet mentions that the Knight has gained a resilience, due to the time it spent in the void beyond Hallownest. This could be referring to the fact that some of those who leave Hallownest lose their memories, meaning the Knight would have no memories of its own tragic conception. Hornet tells the Knight that if it seeks to continue the stasis that keeps Hallownest standing, it must seek the Graven Ash, which is referring to the Kingdom's Edge. At this moment, Hornet sees the Knight as a possible replacement for the Hollow Knight. Basically, the Knight could break the seals that keep the Hollow Knight locked away, defeat the Hollow Knight, and contain the infection itself. It's at this point that I should mention that Hollow Knight actually has 5 different endings.
Yep.
Because of course it would. I'm
Why
going
not?
to be explaining each
They're
of
based
these
on
endings
completion.
in this video, as they each give us a different glimpse into the mechanics of Hollow Knight's world. Now, to
Which
get
is
the
very
easiest
Castlevania
ending
of
to
them.
Hollow Knight, Hornet's instructions to go to the Kingdom's Edge can be ignored completely. If the knight stumbles upon the resting grounds, the three dreamers will appear and cast the knight into the dream realm. There, Seer will come to the knight's rescue and grant it the Dream Nail, a special blade that can tear the veil between the real world and the dream world. With the Dream Nail, the knight can venture to the resting places of the three dreamers, curb stomp their asses, and unlock the entrance to the Black Egg. Inside the egg, the knight finds the Hollow Knight chained up, silently watching over it. Once the chains are broken, the Hollow Knight screams with that familiar Radiance roar and pursues the knight. As the fight progresses, the Hollow Knight starts trying to kill itself, Quirrell style. But then the Radiance starts using the Hollow Knight's body to perform her own attacks. Once defeated, the Hollow Knight begins to spew infection all over the place. The knight can then focus the infection into itself. This results in the first ending of the game, called Hollow Knight. In this ending, the knight usurps the Hollow Knight, prolonging the stasis over Hallownest. New chains and bindings appear out of fuck if I know, and contain the knight, and a new seal is placed over the entrance to the Black Egg. Now there is one giant question looming over this ending. Can the knight actually contain the infection indefinitely, or will the Radiant still manage to break free one day?
So upon seeing that ending, I always assumed that he would just replace it and then it would have to, that whole entire cycle would just have to be done again. The white and the green make it look like Hornet is doing a fucking Joker cosplay. I mean, we get to take off the clown makeup now. We don't have to worry about silksong anymore. We can all take off the clown makeup. Don't worry about it.
Before we answer this question, let's look at some of the other events that can transpire while playing the game. If the player chooses to go to Kingdom's Edge, Hornet will challenge the knight one last time as a final test of strength.
Also, I want to point out
After her defeat,
that everyone's like, oh, we might get silksong information today. For the last like 3 years, and then the one time where they did get silksong information, nobody was like that. Can we talk about that for a second? What the fuck? Put some red where a mouth would be, and it's just the Joker.
Hornet allows the knight to access the cast-off shell, where the Pale King was originally hatched. By interacting with this egg, the knight's shell is marked with the king's brand, technically making the knight the new ruler of Hallownest. With the king's brand, the knight can now open the entrance to the abyss and discover the place of its birth. When leaving the abyss, the knight can encounter Hornet again, where for the first time, Hornet suggests that there are actually two outcomes the knight can enact. She tells the knight that it can either prolong Hallownest stasis, or face the heart of the kingdom's infection. Within the knight, Hornet sees a chance for change. Instead of just replacing the Hollow Knight, Hornet believes that it may be possible to get rid of the infection completely by using the void inside of the knight. After visiting the abyss and obtaining the Shade Cloak, the knight is capable of reaching the White Lady, hidden away in the Queen's Gardens. The White Lady tells the knight that she has been awaiting a vessel to accept a gift, that gift being one half of a charm called the King's Soul, which she claims will give the knight more power. The White Lady goes on to explain that she can feel the weakening of the Hollow Knight within her roots. She tells the knight that it is free of the blemishes that made the Hollow Knight a flawed vessel.
Isn't that... I mean, she probably means that literally, but doesn't that technically mean she can literally feel it in her fucking vagina? I can feel my child getting weaker from my fucking vagoo.
From this dialogue, it is implied that the knight truly is a pure vessel, capable of containing the radiance successfully. But it's not quite that simple, so we're gonna have to dig a bit deeper into this. Basically, we're gonna need to answer a simple question. What exactly does it mean to be a Hollow Knight? Despite the White Lady's words, we have a number of instances where the characters and item descriptions mention that the knight has a will, and maybe even a mind. But from the Pale King's dialogue when describing the Hollow Knight, it is stated that a pure vessel has no mind or will. So is the White Lady wrong? Or maybe even lying? Her eyes have been clouded by time, and she can be tricked into thinking that Ogrim is in the room when the knight is wearing the Defender's Crest charm. She also thinks that Dryia is still alive, which,
I mean, it's not like she knows.
So maybe the White Lady is just senile. My problem with that theory is
She
that
hasn't
the
left
White
that
Lady
spot for
states
God
that
knows
the
how long.
vessels stand out to her clearly in a misted world, due to them being her spawn. She also questions whether or not the knight sought her aid, which would imply that the knight must have some kind of will. So for whatever reason, the White Lady thinks the knight is still capable of containing the radiance, even if it's still able to make decisions. After all, the Hollow Knight was considered pure, but they still taught it how to wield a fucking sword. I mean, if the knight were truly and completely hollow in a literal sense, it probably shouldn't even be able to walk, or draw a map, or open a goddamn bank account. In short, this whole concept of being hollow is so abstract and hard to define, I don't really feel comfortable giving a solid answer on whether or not the knight is or isn't.
Why did you bring it up?
Hollow, and I think the game leaves room open for other interpretations. Of course, the White Lady's gift is useless without the other half of the King's Soul. In order to reach it, however, the knight must travel to the White Palace, locked inside the body of a King's Bold. In order to bypass the seal, the knight must use a fully awakened dream nail. It can do this by bringing 1800 essence to the seer, allowing her to sharpen the weapon's blade. If the knight does this, the seer remarks that the knight truly is the wielder that her tribe has been dreaming of. There's no explicit reason why the Moth tribe was dreaming about this supposed wielder so much, but it seems like they believe the wielder would wash away the crimes the Moth tribe committed by turning their backs on the Radiance. The seer seems to know that the knight might kill the Radiance, and she seems accepting of it, ready for her and her tribe to disappear and be forgotten forever. With the awoken dream nail in hand, the knight can travel to the Pale King's refuge and locate the other half of the King's Soul charm. When equipped, the King's Soul provides a never-ending supply of soul, making it almost useful if it weren't for the insanely high cost of the charm, and the painfully slow rate at which it increases, and the fact that the charm will get replaced in about 5 minutes after you.
Are you going up? I'm fine.
The King's Soul charm itself symbolizes the union.
I usually
between
draw
two
for much
higher
longer than
beings.
this, so we're actually
To me,
making good
this
time.
implies that the King's Soul is a representation of a vessel, which also was created by the union of two higher beings. With the King's Soul in their inventory,
But you
the
guys
knight
hold
now
on. You
gains
guys
access
alright?
to an area in the abyss called the Birthplace. In this massive pile of vessel shells, the knight can find a giant egg. Dream nailing the egg allows the knight to access its own memory when it was cast down into the abyss. From viewing that memory, the King's Soul charm is replaced with the Void Heart charm. The recollection of this event allows the knight to come to terms with the void inside itself. Once the knight has the Void Heart, the shades in the abyss no longer attack it, and that strange creature that gives the knight the Shade Cloak calls it the Lord of Shades. In other words, the knight has now bound the once fragmented void under its own will, allowing it to control the void in a powerful new way. With the union of the void, the Pale King, and the White Lady, the knight has gained a strength before unseen. It is with this charm that 2 additional endings become unlocked. Hornet will now be standing outside of the Black Egg.
I had to make a conversation with my sister's ex-boyfriend. It was interesting. He wanted to give some things. Anything we care about? Anything cool? And by we, I mean you, but anything we care about? Just plushies? Well. As in he's giving your sister her shit back? Not sure if that's considered giving it back. If the thing she wanted back is the giant ass mirror, he could just be being a dick.
Offering to help the knight should the opportunity arrive. Midway through the fight with the Hollow Knight, Hornet rushes into battle, subduing the Hollow Knight and piercing its shell. It's at this point that the knight is given the perfect opportunity to enter into the mind of its sibling, fighting the source of the infection head on, and finally putting an end to the Radiance's tyranny. Or it can just stand there and let Hornet get knocked unconscious. If the
I didn't know
knight
you could do
finishes
that.
off the Hollow Knight as usual, the sealed sibling ending occurs. Basically, it's the same as the Hollow Knight ending, but now Hornet is in the room too, and her face appears on the door of the Black Egg. It's not clear what exactly this means for Hallownest. This might imply that Hornet is now a dreamer, but she's inside the temple, meaning that no one can actually get in there to kill her should the knight ever start leaking infection. At the same time, Hornet mentions that the bindings of the Black Egg would drain her, so she's probably just going to die anyway, right? Generally, people consider this to be one of the worst endings, but it's worth pointing out that Team Cherry doesn't support any one ending as being the true ending. Each ending is canonical in its own right, and honestly, this ending isn't the worst. At least the Knight and Hornet will get to spend some quality time together.
Your
If
siblings.
the Knight does dream of the Hollow Knight, it will be taken to an arena where it can finally fight the Radiants head on. But the Knight isn't alone, as the other shades from the Abyss will appear in order to help corner the Radiants. Eventually the Radiance gets trapped in the tendrils of the Void. The Knight bitch slaps her a couple times, and then the Radiance is consumed into the darkness. The Black Egg then appears to turn to shadows.
I would assume the ending with the Radiance is one. With the Radiance is the one they're going off for silksong. I mean, it would have to be, right? It's either that one or the first one.
And the Void seeps down into the ground. Hornet awakens to find the Knight's broken shell lying on the floor. We get one final shot of the Shades in the Abyss going to rest, and the game is over. This ending is called the Dream No More ending. The Radiance is gone, and Hallownest is finally free from her infection. Now I think it's fair to ask a few questions about how the Dream No More ending comes about. When the Hollow Knight was initially chosen to become the pure vessel, the Abyss was sealed up and the rest of the vessels were left to rot away. But somehow vessels ended up outside of the Abyss, and then one of those vessels was used to replace the Hollow Knight. Exactly how much of this operation was planned, if at all? The White Lady was waiting for a vessel. Did she have any communication with Hornet? Hornet was guarding the King's Brand, the only way for a vessel to enter the Abyss. How did she know it was necessary to guard the King's Brand from weaker vessels? Hell,
Can't believe Dizzy's missing all this lore. They're at work, unfortunately.
Wouldn't it be pointless to guard the King's Brand?
They're also
since
going to
the
be
vessels
late
could just creep
to
back into the Abyss the same way? I'm not going to provide any good answers to these questions.
They're also going to be late
because
to
God
Anime
forbid
Club.
I answer anything in this entire video. But I do want to point out that no plans to actually produce the Dream No
Right.
More ending are explicitly stated in-game. So we can only speculate as to whether or not the White Lady or Hornet, or maybe even the Pale King, knew that they could defeat the Radiants by creating a Lord of Shades like the Knight. Regardless, the next two endings were definitely not planned. In fact, the last two endings that were added in the Godmaster update almost feel out of place. The Godseekers basically hijack everything to the point where you don't even have to enter the Temple of the Black Egg to beat the game. That's like beating Mario Bros without ever seeing Bowser.
Mario?
But on the other hand, the Godmaster endings basically reinforce that Hallownest does not exist in a vacuum, which can help the world of Hollow Knight feel more real, because what else is reality but just a bunch of random chaotic stuff happening all the time? If the Knight finds the Godseeker in the Junk Pit, it will be able to enter her mind and refight all the bosses in the game. This is part of the Godseeker's ritual. They basically attune to the resonance of gods through ritual combat. This allows them to ascend their minds higher, and
I never did
eventually,
this.
through
I
the
never-
use of
I-
godly focus.
I didn't realize this gave you an ending. So when I got to this part in my playthrough, I just stopped playing because I didn't care anymore.
Achieve communication with the god sleeping in Hallownest's heart, the Radiance. Now I know what you're thinking. That's a pretty convoluted little religious practice they have going on here. What's next? Are they going to start measuring the Knight's Theon levels? It's pretty complicated, but the point is, these Godseekers have some serious capabilities to fuck things up in Hallownest, as we're about to see. As the Knight makes it further and further through the four Pantheons, the Godseekers get closer and closer to making contact with the Radiance, locked away inside.
God Home was a really cool thing they added. God Home was basically a Coliseum of Fools on steroids. I did some of them, but after like the second or third one, I was like, I don't actually care anymore, and then stop playing the game.
The Hollow Knight. At the end of the fourth Pantheon, the Radiance makes herself aware in this strange reunion cutscene between the vessels. But she isn't the only one to make an appearance. The Void itself appears to go on the attack, rising up to meet the Radiance's call. It's at this point that the final challenge, the Pantheon of Hallownest, becomes available. The Godseeker finally acknowledges the Knight as being more than just a simple creature.
Superhero, thank you for the follow. How you doing?
After defeating like a bazillion bosses in the final Pantheon, the Knight finally comes face to face with the Absolute Radiance, a stronger, more enhanced version of the game's final boss. Finally, the stage is set.
You
After
good?
roughly
I'm
40
good.
minutes
That's
of
good.
intense
We have it.
agony and tedious boss battles, the Knight has finally reached the ultimate enemy.
You know, I really misread that name. I also misread it.
Hallownest. Truly, this will be a battle for the
How are you?
ages.
I'm getting kind of hungry.
But first, let's check in on our old pal Menderbug. As it turns out, he's still alive when the knight arrives in Halonest, and he's still fulfilling his duty after all this time. Let's take one last look at his diary.
My lovely diary. Someone's gone and broke my favorite sign. Right there, at the top of the crossroads. Keeps happening, too. But you know, I just can't get mad about it. I should be thanking them, really. More chances to fix that beautiful, complex sign. And I've stocked up on spare parts, so I've no fear it'll ever stay broken for long.
Unfortunately, the only way to ever read the Menderbug's diary is to kill him in cold blood. I'm not sure why Team Cherry thought this was necessary, but the general
was
consensus
hilarious.
on Reddit is that they are bloodthirsty warmongers, so it checks out. But at least Menderbug's last moments will be spent fixing one of his favorite signs in the Forgotten Crossroads. It's comforting to think that his final seconds of
You excited for
consciousness
Silksong
were spent in
Superhero?
total bliss, before we sent him hurtling into the infinite chasm that is Oblivion. Well, anyways, the alternate fight between the Knight and the Radiants plays out differently than in the vanilla ending. This time around, the Knight is not accompanied by any shades. Instead, after defeating the Radiants,
I don't know what it is.
the Knight
Oh,
seems to
if you don't know what Silksong is, how did you get here? If you don't mind me asking. I thought you followed me because I was doing Silksong stuff. Was it from YouTube? Silksong's overrated. I'm better than everyone else because I don't like something everyone else likes. Yeah, okay. I came from your YouTube. What video, if you don't mind me asking? Total drama action. Ah, fair enough. Fair enough. I'm not sure how many things like that I'm going to be able to do because of obvious copyright stuff. But if you're interested, Superhero, we do have Anime Club, which is actually today. If you want to join the Discord to hang out with us, you just have to hit !Discord. That was a while ago. I mean, that video and the YouTube ones, and I think In Space and Markiplier, despite that being like 3 or 4 years old, is still getting views on that. So.
Transform into this monstrosity. Now this creature goes by many names. The God of Gods, the Lord Shade, the Devourer, the Void
Devourer.
Entity. But I don't really like any of those, so I will just call him Bill. Bill proceeds to completely annihilate the Radiants in spectacular fashion. We are then treated to the Embrace the Void ending. Bill comes back down from the sky, dropping into the rest of Godhome. The Godseeker starts to get pulled into Bill by Void tendrils. We then cut to the Godseeker in the junk pit. Void starts leaking out of her eyes, and it appears as though Bill is making an escape back into the real world, which is probably a bad thing? Finally, we see Hornet standing outside of the Black Egg as the infection begins to disappear from nearby vines. Hornet hears footsteps coming from inside the Black Egg as the Hollow Knight reveals itself to her and the two prepare for combat. So from this cutscene, we can see that the Radiance's death in Godhome actually did kill her for real.
Total drama
meaning
last
that
year?
the
It
infection
was
over
last year.
Halonest is
I'm now in your
now
Discord.
gone.
Thanks.
This
Thanks for
means
hanging
the
out with
seals
us.
inside of the Black Egg probably wore off.
Anime
allowing
Club
the
will be
Hollow
starting
Knight
in
to escape its
about
prison. In
an
other
hour and
words,
20
the Embrace
minutes?
the Void ending is a goddamn cliffhanger.
No, that's 6. That's when I'm ending stream. 2 hours and 20 minutes. It starts at 7 EST.
And we have no idea how Team Cherry plans to follow this up.
Another person for the
Hollow
cult.
Knight is running loose in Halonest, and the Knight has transformed into a raging void monster that might try to destroy the entire kingdom, or at least what's left of it. What's even more strange about this ending is that the announced sequel, Hollow Knight Silksong, doesn't seem to be related to this ending at all. But that's a whole different shit show. Obviously, the biggest mystery surrounding this ending is the appearance of Bill. Did this creature exist in the void already? Or was it somehow willed into existence by the power of the Godseekers? Did the Knight turn into this thing, or did it just become a part of it? Examining a statue of this creature and other forms of the Knight grant the player a Hunter's Journal entry for an ancient artifact called the Void Idol, which might imply this creature might have been worshipped by the ancient civilization. But again, that's pure speculation. We don't know what this worship of Void exactly looked like. Maybe the Void they worshipped took the form of something more sinister. There is one thing we know about this monster though. It's weak to flowers.
Fucking
Yes, these
flowers.
things. As it turns out, those delicate flowers that Zamir has stockpiled up her ass are actually useful for something. They contain a strange power that even deters the White Lady from touching one. The Godseeker, however, is dumb enough to accept a flower from the night. If the player does this, instead of Void being released out into the world, this flower pulls a no you, and the Godseeker and Void disappear into thin air. The flower itself is described as giving off a pale light, which appears
Flowers. So, superhero, since you don't know anything about Hollow Knight, we are going over the lore video for right now, and then probably gonna go into other stuff in a second. Because this game's sequel, or Hollow Knight's sequel, is coming out this week. So you basically missed all of the lore part, but that won't matter in a second. I have this patch on my back because I started to get hurt when I woke up today, and it oddly smells like of wintergreen lifesavers. Well, I mean, it's probably peppermint smelling because peppermint and eucalyptus, because I think those help pain if applied appropriately. I am not like the herb doctor. You have to ask Dizzy specifically, but I imagine that's the case. How'd you hurt yourself? You just slept weird?
connected to the pale beings. Like I said before, pale beings appear to be some form of top-tier gods. As of right now, we are only aware of two, the Pale King and the White Lady. But the fact that Zamir brought these pale flowers from a faraway land
Maybe in the walk I
implies
took
that there are
yesterday.
definitely
You over
more
here
of them out
walking
there.
wrong?
Another small hint of the existence of pale beings are the pale ore items that can be found all over Hallownest. Did these come from the Pale King, or possibly some other pale being? And what exactly are they? Are they poop? In general, the
They could be
Godmaster endings
poop.
appear to
They
be
are
doing a lot
bugs.
of setup for future Hollow Knight content. Like I said before, Hollow Knight Silksong doesn't seem to connect to these events on the surface, so
Gonna
we're
go
in a
grab
bit of a
sustenance.
bind when
You
trying
do
to
that, man.
discuss
We'll
what
be
these
here,
endings
still
actually
drawing.
mean for the greater narrative Team Cherry is building. There's definitely a lot more to consider about what the pale beings are and what properties they possess. And we also have plenty of questions surrounding the Void and how bugs have interacted with it in the past. It almost feels like we're looking through a keyhole, trying to grasp onto the totality of Team Cherry's creation. How powerful are creatures like Bill and the worms? Where did things like the Void even come from to begin with? How much bigger is the world beyond Hallownest? Is Bardoon into butt stuff? But of course, that's the appeal
Yes,
of a
we're
game
all.
like
That's the
Hollow
dying
Knight.
question. That's the
Having
burning
all of the
question, and we
answers
all
to
know
every
wanted to
question
know.
would just ruin the mystery of the
What
world.
stuff?
Plus, if we didn't
Question
have
mark?
questions like this to waste our time on, then what else would we be doing with our lives? Go outside?
Ew,
Ugh.
disgusting.
And so this video comes to an end. Now I know the average attention span of a YouTube viewer is
Basher, what was
9
that one
minutes.
video you put in
So
the
let me
in the
leave you with a
Discord?
few takeaways.
That was like 3 hours long.
1.
The Pokemon
Hollow
one.
Knight is a game about bugs. I know this may come as a shock, but it's true. Watch the video again, and this time, pay attention. You'll notice right away, I promise. 2. Murdering your own babies might not be such a good idea after
Pokemon
all.
logic that doesn't make sense.
I mean,
Probably gonna
this
put
is
that on after
obviously
this.
just my interpretation of the game's lore. Other people
Really,
might
I'm
have
almost done
different
with
views
this,
on
which
the
I didn't
subject
expect
of
to be,
murdering
but
babies. And every opinion is
I
valid.
do a lot of
so I don't want to
post-processing.
step on anyone's toes or anything. 3. Menderbug is fucking
Ah.
dead. 4. Nothing is certain. This video probably has a few flaws in it. Trying to construct a cohesive narrative with the information found in Hollow Knight
Posture
isn't
check?
exactly
All
straightforward.
right.
I'm sure my views will change in the future.
Did you
and I
mean to
encourage
redeem
you
posture check
explore the
twice?
lore yourself. 5. And this last point is fairly obvious, but I should mention it anyway. Cory in the House is the best anime.
Cory in the house. No, I'm not fucking with Disney. I'm not. No, bad. Man. Oh, there it is. Find it.
Pokemon is a fan.
Hello. Oh, I know this guy. So this video is also from the Discord. No, but you have to do it twice. All right. All right. Well, I just stretched out there. Oh, goodness. How's everyone doing? Everyone doing all right? All right, this video is from MNJ TV. They normally do Pokemon stuff. And then we have a bunch of Pokemon logic that just doesn't make sense. So we're just going to have that on in the background while I continue to draw.
Fantastical franchise, but even accounting for that, it has a lot of
Actually, I saw a video. I watched them. Good. Then we know this video is quality. I saw a video a while ago that I was watching on my own time. That's like how the logic of the trainer switch-ins works. So like when you kill an opponent's Pokemon and they switch in, how the logic works there. And that has been instrumental for me playing Poké Road. Understanding how that shit works was helping me a lot. Anyway. Good boy.
things that just defy basic logic. This is a compilation of my videos covering those exact instances. Greetings, Pokefans! Michael here, and today I'll be covering 50 surprising Pokemon stats. Stat values that don't make sense based on the Pokemon's, well, biology. We'll start with offense. Tinkaton has a lower attack stat than Teddiursa. Despite wielding an enormous metal hammer with ease, this fan-favorite Corviknight killer hits softer than a teddy bear. Speaking of Corviknight, while it has a decent attack stat of 87, Shedinja has a higher one at 90. Can someone explain to me how this basically dead cicada shell can slash harder than a giant metal bird? If it was special attack, I would get it, but physical? Talonflame has a lower attack stat than Charjabug. The bird of prey known for powerful Gale Wings brave birds somehow hits softer than a pudgy bug battery. Speaking of small bugs, Larvesta somehow has a higher attack stat than Charizard. I know Charizard's mainly a special attacker, but still, how does a barely mobile bug do anything better than a dragon? Trapinch also has an astounding base 100 attack, which is higher than Poliwrath. I get that Trapinch has big chompers, but it's hard to believe that it could hit harder than Poliwrath, a Pokemon known for being able to swim across the Pacific Ocean with ease. Another small but mighty pinching Pokemon is Krabby, whose ridiculous base 105 attack is higher than Infernape. I get that crab pinches hurt, but I wouldn't expect them to hurt more than a punch from a combat ape. Mothim has a higher attack stat than Hawlucha, which makes
That's also really surprising because Krabby is kind of bad, so
no sense to me considering one is a wrestler and the other is a moth. Flapple, which is a worm in an apple, has a higher attack stat than Aerodactyl, a prehistoric enormous fanged beast. Arkin has an even higher attack stat than that at 112, which is higher than Kamo-O. I know Arkin and Archeop's whole thing is that they're supposed to be like, oh wow, so strong, and then nerfed by Defeatist. However, even with that knowledge, it still doesn't make any sense to me that this small bird that can't even fly can strike harder than an enormous armored pseudo-legendary dragon. Flareon has the same attack stat as Machamp, which is a very high 130. Machamp having a very high attack stat makes perfect sense. It's a ripped, four-armed fighter. But Flareon? It's a small fox-cat thing that could be a pet if it wasn't on fire. Like, do the flames
It's still
make
a pet.
the strikes and tackles that much stronger? As strong as a Machamp, which can punch things over the horizon? Onyx has an
okay, that's a
infamously low
Pokédex
attack
entry.
stat of
Pokédex
only
entries that shit they can punch shit over
which
the
makes
horizon.
no sense at all, considering that it's an enormous monster made of solid stone. This makes its physical hits softer than Sentret, Rookidee, Joltik, take your pick of small, feeble Pokemon. This poor attack carries over to Steelix, which is the same thing, but bigger and metal. While its attack improves to 85, this is still pretty low, considering it's the same as a Moongus, a 2-foot-tall, squishy mushroom. Bastiodon is another rock and metal beast with a weirdly low attack stat of only 52. I get that it's mainly a defensive Pokemon, but I see no logical reason for it to hit softer than Tynamo. Zen Mode Galarian Darmanitan, which is a hot, bouncy snowman, has an astronomical attack stat of 100.
Wait, what the hell is this? What the fuck Pokemon is this? Did I read the Pokédex entry for this? What the fuck is that? I do not remember this Pokemon existing, period. What the fuck what is that? That's a variant? Maybe that's why I don't remember it. I don't remember this Pokemon at all. What's the name of it? What's the name of this Pokemon? Although now that I think about it, Ice and Fire does not sound like a good combination for a Pokemon. If it is Ice and Fire. Darmanitan? Oh no, I do remember that. Hold on. Look at it though. Darmanitan. I'm gonna look at it though. Manitan. Yeah, this is the fucking gorilla. Zen mode. Galarian mode. Oh, this is the Galarian one. Or the Galarian Zen mode. Got it. It's 4 times weak to rock, water fighting in maybe it's not that bad. Yeah, but that's why I don't remember it, because it's a variant of a variant. Right, that makes me feel a lot better. Because I was like, what the fuck?
This is higher than Groudon, Rayquaza, Zekrom, and even Crowned Sword Zacian. To be fair to Zacian, its attack stat used to be 170 before it was nerfed.
I thought it was pronounced
Zacian, and it still gets the Intrepid Sword boost once per battle. But like, there's any universe where the Bouncy Snowman hits physically harder than a legendary wielding a sword? All right, all those had to do with physical attack. Now let's talk about special. Murkrow has the same special attack stat as Blastoise. This baffles me. One is a small bird. The other has literal cannons coming out of it. Blast is in its name. How do they blast equally? Dolliv has higher special attack than Uxie and Cresselia. I understand that these legendaries are more bulk focused, but still, they're psychic type legendary Pokemon. Psychic is like the special type. So it's crazy that there are any psychic legendaries that hit softer than an Olive Doll. Speaking of psychic types, Claydol has a lower special attack stat than Unknown and Wormadam Plant Cloak. Again, Claydol is more bulk focused, but it's still weird that a fully evolved psychic type does less special damage than this goofy plant bagworm and one of the most infamously useless Pokemon ever made. Abra is a psychic type that does have higher special attack, but it's crazy high. It's 105, which is higher than Greninja's 103. I know it's a psychic type, the special type, I just said that, but it spends all its time fleeing and sleeping. Yet somehow it has more offensive power than Greninja, one of the strongest starters ever made? Noivern, a Pokemon well known for blasting powerful sound waves and being one of the Pokemon to introduce the move Boom Burst, has a lower special attack than Roselia, which is, I don't know, just a small flower thing. Haunter has a special attack stat of 115. This is surprising not only because that's a really high stat, the third highest special attack of any Pokemon that was never fully evolved, only behind Kadabra and Duosion, but also because it's higher than Sylveon's 110. This is crazy to me because when I think of Sylveon, I think of brutally strong special fairy attacks like Pixelate Hyper Voice. Pixelate does boost the power of Sylveon's normal into fairy moves, but like if Sylveon just used like Moonblast, that's not as strong as a not fully evolved Pokemon, and that is just shocking to me. Finally, for offense, Azumarill has higher special attack than physical attack. This was surprising to me since I associate Azumarill with huge power doubling its attack, then maxing it by using Belly Drum. I've used an Azumarill just like that for raids in Scarlet and Violet, and I had no idea that without those modifications, its special attack hits harder. It's just weird to me. That wraps up offense, and next I'll be talking about speed. But before I do, I would like to ask you a quick favor, and that is to subscribe to this channel. It's getting very close to 2 million subs. It'd be really exciting to get there.
Hey, if you're watching this on YouTube and you've watched this far, you should subscribe to me too. Also, I'm also just going to subscribe to M and J because why not? I watch his videos sometimes. Makes sense. Also, hit the like button. Hitting the like button makes the video be able to be seen from to other people easier. So if you like the video, like the video. Anyway.
and I can't get there without you. So, pretty please?
Also,
Now, for
follow
the
me on
first weird
Twitch. I'm trying to get to
speed
1,000
stat,
subscribers
Vikavolt
before the end of the
is
year.
Slower than Grubbin. This has upset me for so long, since I love Vikavolt, and it would be a lot better if it wasn't so idiotically slow. Its base speed is only 43, 3 points less than its pre-evolution Grubbin, which is preposterous considering the dex says it zips around and performs acrobatic flying maneuvers. Escavalier is another bug type with illogically low speed. It has an incredibly poor base 20 speed, slower than a pile of sludge or a Pokemon with slow in its name. I could excuse this if the dex did not explicitly state they fly around at high speed. Clearly
They do
not.
say that.
Escavalier is one of the slowest Pokemon in the game. Rhyhorn is only a bit faster than Escavalier.
He's trying her
having
best.
25 speed, which is quite
Saber
odd
is still the
considering
best, okay?
Rhyhorn racing
Don't let him
is
tell
a
you
thing
different,
in the
chat.
Kalos region. Is the stat ridiculous? Or are the races really boring?
Number 6, Snelly, rockets out of the starting blocks, leaving the other 2 competitors in the dust.
Varoom zips around Scarlet and Violet and is difficult to avoid if it decides to attack you. This makes sense since it's a flying engine, and yet its speed stat is only 47. That's slower than Weedle. Veluza similarly attacks with great speed, yet its speed is only 70, which is slower than Feet for Legs Shroodle. I should mention part of Veluza's lore is that
What,
it sheds its
47?
own
What did I
flesh
say?
to boost its power and speed, hence its usage of Fillet Away, its signature move that halves its HP to boost its attack, special attack, and speed by 2 stages each. Yet, when a battle with Veluza starts, it's perfectly healthy, so either it's not shedding the flesh, and therefore moves crazy fast despite its speed stat, or it is, and is recovering before it attacks you.
Our
Which
speed is
would be
47.
nonsense, because it doesn't recover that
47
health that
what?
it loses in battle. Wiglet has a higher
I'm going through biology stat wise. Yeah. I thought I said something and I didn't remember what I said. They were referring to the video. What was the name of that font? Back. Welcome back. Yes, who's back? Liebeck. That's what it's called. That's what the hell. Back again. JD's back. Tell a friend. Yeah, it was called Varoom. Guess who's back? Guess who's back? Guess who's back? Guess who's back? What did you miss? You missed the ending of the video. And now I'm doing other stuff. Hornet and impact font? That is not impact. That's impact. That's impact. That is, we're now working in impact. When I looked up impact font, all of the font changed to impact font. What? Is that a reference that I don't understand?
speed stat than Revavroom, which, unlike Varoom, does not have ludicrously low speed. Revavroom's is 90, which is...
Chat, I'm gonna start a poll real quick. Hold on. You guys get to help me make this. I'll make it 3 minutes. There you go. What sounds better, Hornet cuts in or Hornet weaves in? You can vote multiple times if you want something to win.
Slower than I'd expect, but still decent. Meanwhile, the little eels is 95. Wiglet's relative Dugtrio is also weirdly fast, having a speed of 120. This is tied with Arceus, Akus. You know, the literal god that teleports around the battlefield in Legends Arceus. Speaking of Legends Arceus, Weird Ear and Hisui and Braviary are used to zip the player around Hisui, yet they both have base speed stats of 65. That is slower than Cottony. Bouffalant is a big bison known for powerful charges,
I like
yet
Bouffalant.
it is slower than Venipede. How does a bison move slower than a Tenebug? Celesteela, an Ultra Beast that people saw flying across the sky at high speed, only has 61 base speed. This is slower than Alcremie. The rocket ship loses to a pile of cream that doesn't have legs. My mortal enemy Miltank has a base speed stat of 100, which is a smidge faster than Genesect. Miltank is a stupid fat cow with sausage nipples. Meanwhile, Genesect can transform into a flying spaceship. How is the spaceship slower? 100 is actually the same speed stat as Galarian Zapdos, which is confusingly low for this Pokemon. It's a roadrunner that you have to chase across the wild area, and the dex explicitly states that it runs through the mountains at over 180 miles per hour. You're
Why is it
telling me that this thing
180?
runs at almost 200 miles an hour, yet it's slower than Dedenne? Is this hamster the Flash? Speaking of dex entries with specific speeds,
it is electric.
Pidgeot states this Pokemon
Mach
flies
2!
at Mach 2 speed. Mach 2 means twice the speed of sound. That's over 1,500 miles per hour. Yet its base speed is 101, which is the same as Dedenne. How fast is this hamster? Shelcloth, a dandelion creature that floats along the wind, has a higher speed stat than Iron Treads, a literal wheel from the future. Then finally for speed, Perugly has a base speed stat of 112. This is faster than Latios and Latias, which the dex says can overtake jet planes. The pudgy fat cat can outrun jets.
We should be
Next
questioning
up is
that
bulk, and
logic
this
just in
one's
general,
a little
let
trickier to
alone.
cover. That's because a lot of Pokemon may seem frail due to low defense and special defense, but then end up having really high HP, making it bulkier than its defensive stats alone convey. And of course, the inverse can also be true. Additionally, HP and special defense are harder to visualize because they're like
Hornet
life
weaves in.
force
We're doing Hornet weaves
and
in.
magic
That was almost
resistance, and, like,
unanimous.
what does that look like? To simplify things, almost all of these entries will focus on physical defense, since how well something should be able to take a punch or a slash is much easier to visualize than HP or special defense. All evolutions have one stat that's a huge 130, but most of them make sense. Jolteon is really fast, Espeon has high special attack, Umbreon withstands magic and energy. But as we've already covered, Flareon hits weirdly hard physically, then Leafeon, a cat made of leaves, somehow withstands physical strikes
What do you mean,
better
almost
than a
was completely
Pokemon
unanimous?
hiding within solid
I thought
stone.
cuts in sounds better, so
What?
almost.
It's leaves. It's made of leaves. Macargo has a confusingly high defense stat of 120, higher than solid metal Bronzong. While rock types are known for having high defense, Macargo doesn't make as much sense here, since the dex says the shell on its back is just skin that has cooled and hardened. It breaks easily with a slight touch. The only thing I can think of that maybe justifies the high defense is that its magma body is squishy, so like a punch it just like squishes and burns. But I still think it's weird it has such a high defense stat when such a large portion of its body shatters easily. Huntail and Gorbis, two random eels, have higher defense than Made of Metal Celesteela, which I do not understand. Another Ultra Beast, Kartana, has an outrageous defense stat of 131. I get that it's a steel type and it's like a samurai sword origami thing, but like, it's paper. The thing is paper.
So?
And it has higher defense than Metagross? While
Yeah,
not as
man.
high as previously mentioned, Horsey's defense
It's also
stat
an
is
alien.
70.
You're
This is
ignoring the
oddly
fact that it's
high
a
since
fucking
it's
alien.
just a baby seahorse, and in fact is equal to the steel type Magnemite. Not all steel types have good defense though. Togedemaru, which is literally a metal ball of spikes, only has a defense stat of 63, which is lower than Chikorita. Lunatones is also
Balancing wise, that's probably pretty good. It's a Pokemon you find out in the wild for one. And for two, it's probably carrying itself because it's made of steel, so it doesn't need a higher defense. So that makes sense.
oddly poor considering that it's made of rock. Its defense
That sounds
is
cool,
only
but
65,
weave makes more sense. I can agree with
which is
that.
lower than Skinny Monkey Ambipom. Nincada, shockingly, has double the defense of its evolution Ninjask. While it's not unheard of for an evolution to get less bulky than its pre-evolution to focus more on speed or power, for example Porygon 2 into Porygon Z, Nincada's 90 base defense having down to only 45 for Ninjask is such a huge change that I needed to mention it. Finally, for bulk, the only special defense
Fuck, don't worry. So I needed to know what the colors for the game are, but like it's the whole entire text is white.
entry, Mantike, a literal baby,
Posture
has the
check again?
same special defense stat as
I mean,
Cresselia,
my posture
a
is
Pokemon
fucked up at the
infamous
moment,
for its
so.
ability to withstand hits. I should note that Cresselia was nerfed this generation. Its special defense used
So how
to
did
be
you get so
higher,
many points so
and of course
fast?
its
You
overall
only
bulk is
start with
still better than
500?
Mantike, but still, a tiny baby having any defensive stat that's better than Cresselia is wild to me. And now for the final category, surprising base stat totals.
300?
Scyther has the same
You sure you
base
wanna
stat
use your
total
points
as
that
both
quickly?
of
You
its
just got here.
evolutions, Scizor and Cleavor,
I mean,
being the
you
only
did just get
instance
here.
of a Pokemon
I mean, you
keeping the
did.
same total upon evolving.
There's not much else to
Nincada
use it on,
technically
I
gets
guess.
weaker when it becomes Shedinja, but really Nincada just becomes Ninjask and then Shedinja is created. So does Nincada really evolve into Shedinja? Spiritomb, a Pokemon well known for being incredibly difficult to obtain, does not have the power level one would expect from such an elusive Pokemon. Its base stat total is only 485, which is lower than famously underwhelming Unpheasant. Beautifly has a higher base stat total than Dustox, which is uncommon for split evolutions. This happened because in Gen 6, Beautifly received a 10-point buff to its special attack, while Dustox did not. Similarly, Poliwrath is stronger than Politoed, its base stat total being 510 compared to Politoed's 500. Like with Beautifly and Dustox, this happened because Poliwrath got a Gen 6 buff to its primary offensive stat that its counterpart did not get. And finally, Onix. Just Onix. I will
Like spending
never
my
understand.
points. Well, you're not gonna
why
have any
this
points if you keep
incredibly
spending them.
large stone
I mean, I don't
beast
mind. Do what you want,
is
but like,
so awful. Its base stat total is only 385, which is lower than Small Dragonfly Yanma and Baby Pokemon Munchlax. I know they remedied it by creating Steelix in the next generation, but it is still insane to me that at any point in time, they thought it made sense for this iconic rock serpent to be so darn weak. And that is all I have for now. So until next time, Poke fans, gotta catch them all. Greetings, Poke fans! Michael here, and welcome to Can These Pokemon Breed? A Pokemon quiz show that will test our contestants' knowledge of Pokemon matchmaking. Let's meet our contestants now. Our first one is Wolfie, more widely known as Wolfie VGC.
Hey.
Wolfie, you are a world champion in Pokemon battling, meaning you're an expert in having Pokemon battle against each other. But how would you say your knowledge is of having Pokemon joined together?
Yeah, thank you for having me. You know, this is a little known fact, but before I was a Pokemon World Champion, I was actually a World Champion of Love. So
Can
I
this-
think I'm probably gonna do pretty
can this
well today.
Pokemon
That is
pull
wonderful
bitches?
to hear, Wolfie. And our next contestant is John, more widely known as PM7.
I don't know
you
this
and I
guy.
have made many videos over the years, so I'm sure you have quite the expertise in Pokemon matchmaking. Is that correct?
What now? What are we answering in this show?
There will be different ways to score points as the quiz show goes on, but in round one, I will be listing a pair of Pokemon, and you tell me yes, they can breed, or no, they cannot. You will get 1 point per correct answer. But if you fall behind here, don't worry too much. There will be higher point earning opportunities as we go on. All right, the first pair of Pokemon in round one is Lickitung and Flaffy.
I'm gonna say yes. I'm gonna say it. I think they can breed.
On principle, no. Heavens, no. I disagree.
I think they're both in the field 2 egg group.
I don't think Lickitung frolics through fields, Wolfie.
Well, where does it live if it's not in the field? It's not in the swamp.
I don't know.
It's
You
not in
spend
the
too much
sky.
time in the battle stadium. You haven't gone out and caught a Lickitung.
How dare you? How dare and Glicky Tongue of all Pokemon. How dare you?
Licky tongue.
All right, Wolfie, you said yes, and John, you said no. Are those
Why
your
don't you do
final
what I want you
answers?
to do?
Yes.
Final.
All right, that is going to be 1 point for Wolfie. Lickitung and Flaffy can breed because they are both in the monster egg group.
Frolicking in the field, yeah.
Flaffy's a monster? It's a sheep. Wait, hold on.
Don't look anything up. I don't want you cheating here, good sir. Round 1, question 2, Octillery and Tentacruel.
This is a trap. This is a trick question because
Oh,
they
yeah.
are similar. Opposites attract, not similar. So they are gonna squid away from each other. No sir, no siree.
I also think no here. I think there's like 3 water egg groups.
What do you take us for, fools?
Yeah, no way. I'm voting no on this one.
All right, you both said no. Final answers?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, you are both correct. Octillery is in the Water 1 and Water 2 egg group, while Tentacruel is only in Water 3.
I hate egg groups.
You are on the wrong show then.
Welcome to egg groups.
Round 1.
Bro, I don't know shit about egg groups. I don't care about breeding Pokemon because now I have a Pokemon save editor, so I'll just hack the Pokemon I want in. I don't have to breed. Pokemon actually doesn't breed with another one that doesn't look like it should. Can you breed things with Mew? You can't breed, right? Because I know Mew, technically the data is like lore-wise, like they're supposed to be like the field creations of Mewtwo. But you can't, you can't breed with Mew. That's what I thought.
Question 3, Huntail and Audino.
Huh?
I don't think one of those two is even a Pokemon. Huntail? What is this you speak of?
Huntail?
I feel like there's no way. I'm gonna say no for this one. This feels like a trick question, and I feel like the answer is yes, but I'm gonna say no.
Digimon can't breed with Pokemon. It's a no.
You're both correct. They cannot.
Ooh, you freaked me out. That was a curveball.
Round 1, question 4,
Pokemon cannot breed
Drapion and
Pokemon.
Surskit.
Good sir, I don't know how this works. I refuse to find out how it works, but unfortunately, I think it's yes.
The problem is I also think it's yes. I'm pretty sure there's like a bug egg group. I'm not positive. I'm gonna say yes as well.
Yes from both of you. Final answers?
World champion thinks Drapion's a bug type. I'm really rethinking a lot of things, but I think I'm sticking with my answer.
But Scorpi's bug. So I'm not, because the Babby form is it would be in the bug.
What did you say?
The
Babby.
Babby form, Skorupi?
Babby?
Yeah, the Babby.
Yeah, like you know, you get pregnant for 9 months, then you have a Babby.
I apologize. I had a bit of a...
It is well known that Wolfie just says words wrong.
lapse in brain power there. Anyways,
You did.
Wolfie, you've already locked in your final answer. John, what is your final answer?
Last time I thought Wolfie was gonna go for a bug move. Apparently he forgot bugs existed and then he went and 6-0'd me. So I'm gonna go with him this time because whenever he doesn't know what a bug is, he's right somehow.
You're both correct. They can breed. They're both in the bug egg group.
I knew it. I knew Drapion was a bug.
All right, round 1, question 5. Hitmonlee and Hariyama.
So there's a human egg group for sure, and I feels like they should be able to, but I'm gonna say no. I don't know why, but I feel like one of them is in the field and one of them is in the human one.
Well, last question brought me up to losing a championship against Wolfie. Hariyama makes me think of losing it to a championship against my good friend Nick. I'm in a box of emotions, but I'm going with the opposite one. Whatever Wolfie said, nay. I take the other stance.
All right, so Wolfie, you said no, and John, you're saying yes. Is that correct?
Yay.
Why are you doing
Yes.
that?
That's correct with me.
All right. The one who gets the point for this round is John.
Wow.
They are both in the human-like egg group. Hitmonlee is male only, though, which means they can only make a baby Makuhita.
Babby.
Babby, sorry. Round 1, question 6. Magmar
Hitmonlee's in the
Cacnea.
fat bitches.
No, I've lived among the cacti before, and an evil fire duck would burn them down. Heavens, no.
I'm pretty sure Magmar's also in the human egg group, and I don't think Cacnea is, so I'm gonna go no.
You are both incorrect. Magmar and Cacnea are both in the human-like egg group.
Weird.
Cacnea
looks nothing. Yeah,
Round
it's
1,
not
question
human looking at
7.
all.
Metagross and Bronzong.
I say
Wait, was Cacnea the one that James had in Pokemon that was always trying to fuck him? Maybe that makes sense though.
no.
My first thought is no, because one is a spaceship and one is a bell. It doesn't make sense. But if it doesn't make sense, but the Pokemon world doesn't make sense, they make Babby. Yes.
The point goes to Wolfie. Both Metagross and Bronzong are
doing
genderless,
that?
meaning they can only breed with Ditto.
There's my VGC knowledge coming into play. I knew it'd come in handy at some point.
Round 1, question 8. Aerodactyl and Charizard.
I have no idea on this one.
No, this is easy. Dragons are prehistoric creatures and they would eat knights like Wolfie. And then Aerodactyls from a prehistoric age, and it would also eat Wolfie.
I don't want to think about eating Wolfie, so I'm gonna say no here.
No from Wolfie, yes from John. Final answers?
Yep.
Yes.
The point goes to Wolfie. Aerodactyl is only in the flying egg group, while Charizard is in both monster and dragon.
I'm sending one to eat you, Mr. Host Man.
No!
I don't make the biology rules, good sir. I simply test your knowledge of them. Round 1, question 9. Delcatty and Pachirisu.
Field egg group? Sure, I'll say yeah.
If I flip enough coins, heads will be correct eventually. I'm going yes again.
You are both correct.
Woohoo!
Delcatty and Pachirisu are actually double compatible. They are both in the field and both in the fairy egg groups. The final question of round 1. Rillaboom and Ferrothorn.
That sounds like it would be painful.
No, I think this is where I drop the no answer. I mean they're both grass creatures, but I don't. No Babby, no.
I'm gonna say yes because I'm not in a mood where I'm feeling very warm towards Rillaboom. So
Wow.
for my own purposes, I'm gonna say yes.
All right, yes from Wolfie, no from John.
Correct.
No, I'm going with Wolfie. That means he was spited and he lost, and him losing gives me a chance to win in the future.
Wait, so are you taking my answer?
I'm taking your answer.
Okay, I want John's answer then. This is the ultimate bait and switch. I knew he would copy me, so I decided. I thought that John was right the whole time.
Oh no.
So I'll go no in that case.
Oh, so we
Well,
have wait, what are your final answers?
He still probably lost to Rillaboom recently, so I'm going with yes.
And I'll take no.
That means the point goes to John. They are both in the plant egg group.
Double sadness.
Insult and injury.
So the scores after round 1 are very close. Wolfie with 7 and John with 6. It's now time for round 2. The format of the questions will be the same, but for each correct answer, you'll get 2 points.
Wow.
2 is bigger than 1.
You guys are pillars of wit. Round 2, question 1. Riolu and Baniri.
sorry, this shade got me there. Damn, you guys are real smart, huh? Anyway.
I'm gonna say no.
Easy yes.
The 2 points go to Wolfie.
I'm pretty sure Babby
Nope,
Pokemon
that's too
can't
much.
breed. I'm like 90% sure.
You are correct. Riolu is technically a baby Pokemon, which I have never understood.
Babby!
It's technically a babby Pokemon, which I've never understood, but it is one. So 2 points to Wolfie. Round 2,
Do they just fucking
question 2.
photosynthesize next to each other and an egg group pops out of it? Who knows, man?
No, I don't think a frog would spend too much time with the mailman in the sky. So
I'm tough because Dragonite is obviously in the dragon egg group, but it could
You're saying yes?
be in either the flying or the monster egg group, and Greninja could also be in the monster egg group. So I'm gonna say yes because I feel like there's a monster overlap here.
Greninja and Dragonite, the points go to Wolfie, but not for the
Why?
reason you thought. They are both in the Water 1 egg group.
Why?
because it comes out of a whirlpool in Pokemon Snap. I should have known.
Round 2, question 3. Torchic and Slacking.
I'm gonna say yes.
My gut was no, because it's so obviously different that you would think no, but then you'd think, well, he's tricking us, so it's yes. But I think you're on a different plane of thinking, Michael. I think you are above that and you are ready for the switcheroo. So with all of that, I'm predicting your prediction with the prediction of predicting. So what did I say again?
You said no. I said yes.
Yep. That's, yeah.
The points go to Wolfie. They are both in the field egg group. Round 2, question 4.
My favorite-
Execute and
My
sl-
favorite in any game show kind of game is to think that the host is trying to fuck with them. And so they try to metagame around that. That is the funniest shit ever because it's almost never true. There are some instances where that is true, but it's almost never true. It is just something people make up.
Sligoo.
Oh, wait. But you can't spell. Okay, wait. I'm going to blow both your minds. Are you ready?
Okay.
Absolutely not. I'm not ready.
You can't spell Sligoo without GG, but you also can't spell execute without GG. So I'm going to say yes.
Oh, that's so good. He's so smart. Oh, this is tough because I don't want to steal his spotlight and go with him, but he's also smacking my bottom repeatedly, and I only liked a few of those.
That was quite the exciting mental image.
He says, you know, I was thinking yes in the beginning, so you know what? Maybe he's just agreeing with me. That's how I'll lie to myself.
You are both incorrect. They cannot. Execute is only in grass, and Sligoo is only in dragon.
Oh.
Round 2, question 5. Blissey and Alcremie.
Oh, I hate both these Pokemon.
Oh,
Useless.
yes.
Nah, Blissy's in the field egg group. I'm saying no.
Wolfie, no. John, yes. Final answers?
Yep.
Yes.
The points go to Wolfie.
What? I was thinking it because of the fairy group. He literally got it wrong.
So,
oh my God.
Blissey and Alcremie are in fact both
Yeah,
in the
I need
fairy
this.
egg group, but both of them are female only.
Oh.
Why is Alcremie female only? It's a dessert.
Before we move on to the next half of
Okay, I can actually explain that. It is a very common Japanese trope that women like sweets. Don't ask me why that's a Japanese trope, but that's why. So if you've ever seen an anime and the characters go, and a male character goes, no, I don't actually like, I'm not into sweets. And they go, oh my God, he's so cool. It's because it's a stereotypically manly thing to not like sweet things in Japan. It's very strange. I don't get that one.
round 2, if you want to be in the coolest egg group of all of them, the subscribed to M&J TV egg group, you can subscribe now.
But I like sweet.
Turn
I
on
also like sweets. I cannot live without chocolate.
You're going to jail.
No, I'm
If
not.
you don't subscribe to M&J TV, that is.
Anyways, round 2, question 6. Macargo and Boldor.
Oh, this is even worse than Ferrothorn and Rillaboom. I don't like this one.
How is this worse than Ferrothorn and Rillaboom?
Because they're rocks. They're rocks. They're both rocks.
What Mikey
It's a
thinks
rat.
about in his spare time is what he thinks about in his spare time. Stop judging.
I'm going to say no. I don't like this one.
I side with you, Mikey. Don't worry. Yes, I'm with you.
Okay. Well, the points go to Wolfie.
I never support M&J TV. I learned my lesson the tough way today.
Macargo is only in the amorphous egg group, while Boldor is
the
only in the
amorphous.
mineral egg group. Round 2, question 7. Kangaskhan and Aggron.
Yes, 100%. They can totally. Yes. I'm super confident, John. So you should definitely not copy my answer. It's 100% yes.
I was confident of yes, but I've been wrong on every single one. And you've been right, but you're almost never right because you actually know the answer. You're only right when you think wrongly, so you're confident, so it has to be no.
Yes from Wolfie, no from John. Final answers?
Yep.
Yes, sure.
The points go to Wolfie. They're both in
It's the
Monster.
monster. Yeah, I knew this one. I knew this one for sure.
Oh.
Round 2,
No.
question 8. Poltegeist and Dusclops.
No, because the last one was too good to be true, and this one, it seems too good to be true because they're both spooky boys, but instead it's no, they're spooky spooks.
I actually think this one's no as well. I'm going with John on this one.
Oh no, the kiss of death.
You both get the points. Poltegeist is genderless.
Oh.
Round 2, question 9. Archeops and Staryu.
What? No.
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 Definitely not.
No.
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 No
No.
from both of you?
I'm switching Wolfie's answer to yes, but no from me.
I'm pretty sure Staryu is genderless. I'm gonna say no.
I'm pretty sure Wolfie's answer is yes minus no.
Okay, so you both said no. Final answer?
Yes, it's no.
That is correct for both of you.
Is Staryu genderless?
It is.
I'm
And
pretty
I actually I made a mistake and I put down yes, and then you said it was genderless, and I was like, oh wait, he's right. I wrote it down because both of them are in the Water 3 egg group. For some reason, genderless Pokemon have egg groups.
Why is Archeops? You said Archeops, right?
Archeops is in the Water 3 egg group.
That is the single biggest crime that I've heard today. That has to be like a labeling error.
The final question of round 2, but this is not the final question of the show, so there's still a chance for John to come back. Round 2, question 10, Crobat and Decidueye.
I know the answer.
All right, I'll
The
I'll
last
answer
one-
first though, because I don't know the answer, so I don't want you to think I'm copying you. Okay, so this is tricky because like Crobat obviously and Decidueye, they're both bird based. I feel like Decidueye is going to be in the flying egg group or something dumb. I'm going to say yes.
I'm gonna say no because the last answer was supposed to be yes, but he done goofed up, and they were supposed to be so opposite, and it's yes. This one they're so similar, so it's no. Nothing to do with the Pokemon. I'm trying to get inside the mind of the test maker, which is the worst strategy anyone could ever use. When
Well,
taking a
at
test.
least he
All right,
knows.
so yes from Wolfie, no from John. Final answers?
Yep.
The points go to Wolfie. They're both in flying.
Yeah. Yeah.
Going into round 3, Wolfie has a sizable lead of 25 points to John's 10. However, round 3 could tip the scales because it is
I always love it in a game show when someone puts down the wrong answer and then fights for their fucking life to be correct. It's even better if they do get the point. It's because nobody wants to admit they're wrong. Nobody wants to admit that they're wrong. Oh shit! No, don't do that.
the final round and has a maximum point opportunity equal to both of the rounds before added together.
Not that I need that.
Oh, buddy, it's okay.
Round 3 is one question with 10 correct answers, and our contestants will get 3 points for each correct answer, meaning a total possible maximum
That's a fun way to do
of
that.
30 points. Are you gentlemen ready?
As I'll ever be.
Born ready. Born as a babby ready.
All right, here is the final question. The undiscovered egg group consists of Pokemon that cannot breed under any circumstances, not even with Ditto. The group is primarily made up of legendary and babby Pokemon, but there are 10 Pokemon that are neither legendary nor baby. Name as many of those as you can, and you may list up to 10. As a bit of a hint, 3 of the answers are variations of Pokemon species that normally can breed. You have 1 minute, ready, go.
I don't even know where to start with this one, so I'm not even gonna pretend I know the answer. Not that I knew any of the answers beforehand, but I'm just saying.
And time's up, gentlemen. Wolfie, would you like to list your answers first?
Okay. Number 1, Minior. Number 2, Ditto? Question mark? Number 3, Stonejourner. Number 4, now this is a good one. Unknown, maybe? Is that a legendary? I don't know, maybe. Number 5,
not a legendary.
Komala. It's a Pokemon, so that meets the first criteria, and it's always asleep, so I think it probably can't breed. I would hope not, otherwise Pokemon, you're gonna have some explaining to do. Okay, but here's
You
where
know
the big
that
boys come in.
Squiddy and
Number
Willow
6,
can breed? I did know
Ashgra
that.
Ninja. That's a Pokemon, pretty sure it can't breed. Number 7, Eternal Floette, the event Pokemon with Light of Ruin. Probably can't breed. That's not special. Number 8, Magnezone. Pretty sure this guy can breed, but I think he shouldn't be able to. Number 9, this one might be right. Creogonal. It might be able to breed, but it might also not have a gender. I don't know. And number 10, Unfazant, because that thing shouldn't even exist, and I want it to go extinct.
I agree
Ditto
with
can
you
breed.
there, buddy.
Ditto can't breed.
Okay.
Ditto is supposed to be used
John,
for breeding.
your turn.
I wrote my answers on a pink weekly planner.
Cute.
I just wanted the audience to know. First one is Rotom. If Rotom doesn't count and you're counting Rotom as the appliance, I'll kill you. Just in case you screwed me on the first one, I put Zen mode Darmanitan. I didn't understand what you meant by forms. If I'm correct there, this one can't breed. If that's not what you meant, I was confused. Porygon, I was running out of ideas, but then I had a second wind and put Unknown, Minior, and Cryogonal. 3 things Wolfie put, so they're not gonna help me if they're right. I put Hail Form, Cast Form to put you in a box.
All right.
No, it was going to be to make you happy.
Oh, put me in a box? Put me in a box normally has negative connotations.
Well, yeah, to force you to give me a point. Hail yeah.
That's not how that works. But anyway.
Hell
I don't like this
yeah.
guy. Wishy-washy school forms, don't know how these form things work. Pukamuku and Pinchurchin. They are pretty similar, and I forget they exist constantly.
All right, I have the points tallied. The correct list is Cosplay Pikachu,
I thought it was a Pikachu, but I couldn't remember what Pikachu it was.
Cap Pikachu, Nidorina, and Nidoqueen, which is
They
one.
can't breed?
They cannot. It's really weird. A Nidoking can breed with a Nidoran female, but not Nidorina or Nidoqueen. It's very odd.
I hate
That's
that.
very strange.
Yeah. Unknown Battle Bond Greninja.
Ash Greninja, I said that.
You did, so that earned you points.
Yeah.
And then the last four, Wolfie, you might be upset about this. Dracozolt, Arctozolt, Dracovish, and Arctovish.
I almost wrote Dragovich just because I liked it, but I thought I couldn't remember. I couldn't remember. I thought that you could breed them though.
Nope, you cannot. They don't let abominations reproduce. So, with 2 correct answers from Wolfie, that brings his point total to 31. And with 1 from John, that brings his to 13. Oh, look at that. Like a little palindrome. Congratulations, Wolfie. You are the winner of Can These Pokemon Breed, which means you will be receiving a mighty plush to call your very own. But for those of you who weren't able to compete today, if you want to get your own, mnjtvmerch.com for a very limited time. Linked in the description below. Thank you so much to both of our contestants. And that is all I have for now. Till the next time, Boogie fans. Gotta catch them all. Greetings,
You
Pokefans.
have to catch them all, though.
Michael here, and there are a variety
Michael
of ways
here.
that Pokemon can evolve. Leveling up, being traded, having an evolution stone used on them.
He won by so
passing
much. I
under
mean,
the
he does
arch of the
actually
Dusty
play the
Bowl
game.
After it has lost 4
Like, he plays competitive Pokemon, so it makes sense that he knows certain things. Because before save editors were a thing, you would actually have to breed your Pokemon. So,
49 HP or more from a single attack without fainting in that battle or since. That one was annoying, but a unique quirk about some of these evolution methods is that they require a trainer's influence. That means there are certain evolved form Pokemon that should be impossible to find in the wild,
posture check. My posture is
but are
immaculate.
found there anyways. Today I'm going to be going over every single impossible wild Pokemon. Impossible meaning that that species of Pokemon is obtained through methods that require a trainer, but it's found in the wild anyways. Also, I'm only going to be covering impossible species, not possible species at impossible levels. For example, coughing evolves into wheezing at level 35, but you can find level 16 wild wheezing in the burned tower in Crystal. I'm not going to be covering all the examples of that because
You'd be
there's a
for-
lot,
Yeah,
and
it's
frankly, I don't
impossible.
have the time. So don't forget to subscribe to my channel since less than half of my viewers are subscribed, which makes me very sad. But now let's
That's
dive
actually
into
true for a
every
lot.
impossible wild Pokemon. The first thing we need to go over is the evolution methods that are possible in the wild, and therefore eliminate all of the Pokemon that fall under those evolution method umbrellas. The first is plain old leveling up. Pokemon are free to battle in the wild, which means they would gain experience points, and once they gain enough experience points and levels, they can reach their evolution level. So that's totally possible in the wild. Location-based level up evolutions are also possible in the wild. The Pokemon simply has to level up in that place, which is very possible for that Pokemon to do. Evolving by leveling up while holding an item is also possible in the wild. The Pokemon could theoretically find their particular evolution item and take a liking to it and hold on to it. And
Sometimes
then
you get-
they
sometimes you get,
fight some battles while holding it, get some
Allocates
experience,
with
level up, and
Electrizers on
boom,
them.
they've evolved into the new form. That is totally possible in my opinion. The next variation of the level up method is if a certain Pokemon is in the party. Specifically, Mantike evolving into Mantine if a Remoraid is in the party when it levels up, and Pancham evolving into Pangoro if a Dark type is in the party when the Pancham levels up. These may seem like they're not possible in the wild, but that's only if you go with the extremely rigid definition that a party is the group of Pokemon a trainer keeps on hand. And I don't agree with that. I think that's just a way of explaining that they have to level up while that triggering Pokemon is nearby. So if a Mantike levels up with a Remoraid within, I don't know, 10 feet of it, then it'll become a Mantine. So Mantine and Pangoro in the wild, to me, make perfect sense.
I agree.
Well, also wild Mantine is perfectly logical because you can hatch baby Mantine. If its parents are not holding a wave incense, then the babies will be Mantine. So that one I didn't actually need to cover, but it's still relevant for Pangoro. Actually, on the topic of incense breeding, I want to cover that here. It's not an evolution method, but it's an obtainment method that may seem like it makes the Pokemon involved not possible to be found in the wild. After all, how could you breed with incense in the wild if the parents can't really get a hold of incense?
Is it not weird that incense in this case literally mood setting? Like it's the candlelight dinner for Pokemon before they fucking get it on. That's weird, right? Like I'm not the only one who thinks that's fucking weird that they put it in a children's game. All right.
Well, for one, it is theoretically possible for Pokemon to get their hands on those incenses. You can just find them sitting around sometimes. But also, I don't think this specific incense is necessary.
Or a Pokemon game that just uses a fucking Pokemon that uses a fucking baseball bat as a weapon. You would probably the closest you probably get to that is a Pokemon like a ghost that's possessing Poltergeist style a fucking baseball bat. That's probably as best as you're getting.
Logical breeding process. So a rose incense being near two parent rose raids will produce a baby Budew, but I think them doing their stuff near a bush of roses would also create baby Budew. Therefore, all baby Pokemon, even the ones that only can be created with an incense involved, are possible wild
It's not
Pokemon,
really a drug.
in my opinion. But back to evolution
Incense isn't really a
methods,
drug.
Another interesting level up method of evolution is Inkay into Malamar. Inkay evolves into Malamar.
It could be a
if leveled
drug,
up
but
while the
like
3DS
that
or
depends
Nintendo
on
Switch is held
depends on what kind of
upside
incense it is. But
in
9
the
times out
real
of 10,
world,
it's not a drug.
annoying and weird. So this could make it seem like you can't get wild Malamar because they don't walk around inside game consoles, but to me, turning the game console upside down is just a real world way of representing Inkay leveling up while upside down, which is something that it can definitely do in the wild. It just turns upside down at the moment of attack that gets it the experience that makes it level up. So wild Malamar, in my opinion, totally fair. Some other weird evolution methods I'd cover is Galarian Farfetch'd evolving into Surfetch'd if it lands 3 crits in one battle, which is
Easily
definitely very possible. And then Galarian Yamask evolving into Runerigus with that whole thing I mentioned in the intro. It has to take a hit that does 49 HP of damage or more without causing it to faint, and then it can't faint again until it walks under the arch in the Dusty Bowl. It's a ridiculous and annoying evolution method, but it's theoretically possible for a Yamask on its own to have happen to it. A method one might think cannot happen in the wild, but I actually think can, is friendship evolutions. If you had asked me a couple years ago if a friendship evolution could happen in the wild, I would have told you no. But my opinion on that has changed thanks to the Pokemon anime. In the first episode of Pokemon Journeys, we see that Ash's Pikachu actually used to be a Pichu.
No doubt.
It was able to friendship evolve thanks to a strong bond it shared with the Kangaskhan mother and child that cared for it for a while. What this means is that the friendship evolution can be triggered not just by a bond with a person or a trainer, but also by a strong bond with other Pokemon. That means friendship evolving Pokemon are totally possible to find in the wild, provided that the pre-evolved form is able to make friends. And the final method that is definitely possible in the wild is interacting with an evolution item. They are most commonly stones, like a Firestone or Water Stone, but they can be other things too, like the apples that evolve Applin in
Chat, something just occurred to me that I have not done this entire time we've been doing this. You know what that is? I haven't fucking saved.
to Flapple or Appleton. This is definitely possible in the wild because a Pokemon could very easily find the relevant item, touch it,
Well, we
and
just
then
saved,
evolve.
so we're fine now.
In fact,
But it just occurred to
some
me that I didn't
Pokemon
do that.
apparently even intentionally seek out their evolution item.
Then the crash would have been over.
Sword Dex entry even
So it wouldn't have been 100% over because there are like restore points that Clip Studio does. However, I don't know how frequent those happen. So yeah, maybe it would have been over.
says that it goes around shattering boulders as it searches for a moonstone. So that covers all of the evolution methods that are definitely possible in the wild. So all Pokemon obtained through those methods are completely logical Pokemon to find in the wild. But now let's go over the evolution methods that should not be possible. The first and biggest one is trading. This evolution method absolutely requires a trainer, and in fact requires 2 of them. How it works is that the trading machine and process infrastructure and technology impacts the Pokemon's biology, resulting in its evolution once the trade is completed. However, that infrastructure is not accessible in the wild. Even if a wild Pokemon wandered up to a trading machine, it couldn't put itself through it because it doesn't have a Pokeball. This means that every single Pokemon that evolves by trading, regardless of whether an evolution item is necessary or not, should not be possible to find in the wild. So all of them are impossible wild Pokemon. I should say it is theoretically possible for a trade evolution Pokemon to be found in the wild if it was released by a trainer, but that's kind of sad. And also unrealistic. There is a new Gengar in Giant's Cap every single day. Is someone releasing a Gengar every single day? No, they are not. We're not talking
You don't know
about
that.
a trainer
You don't know that? They did this shit with Lapras. It was fine. You don't know that?
releasing Pokemon. We're just ignoring that possibility because that doesn't happen very often. Now let's go over all of the trade evolution Pokemon to see if they are found in the wild and therefore are impossible at some point or another. Alakazam can be found in Loop Lagoon and the Insular Sea in the Isle of Armor. Machamp can be found in Giant's Mirror, along with many different locations in max raid battles. As of writing this video, both forms of Golem cannot be obtained in the wild. Gengar has actually been findable in the wild since Gen 4, spawning in the Old Chateau in the Sinnoh games if any Gen 3 cartridges in the DS, then in Thrifty Megamart in the Alola games as an SOS battle Pokemon, then in Giant's Cap and Max Raid battles in Sword and Shield. Politoed has actually been found in even more places, showing up somewhere in the wild in every game since Black and White, except Oris and Let's Go. Slowking has been found in just a couple places, the Abundant Shrine in Black and White, Kala'i Bay in Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, and in the Max Lair as a Dynamax Adventure Pokemon. All of the Max Lair Pokemon can both be rented and found in the wild. So if they're found in the wild at any point, all the Max Lair Pokemon are considered wild Pokemon. Steelix is catchable in the wild in every single Gen 4 game, in Dust Clouds in Black 2 and White 2, and then is both a Max Raid boss and a Wanderer in Sword and Shield, as I'm sure all of us have experienced. Kingdra can be found by fishing in rippling water in all of the Gen 5 games, plus as a raid boss and Wanderer in the Isle of Armor. Rhyperior can be found as a raid boss in several Sword and Shield locations, and as a Wanderer in the Pot Bottom Desert on the Isle of Armor. Scizor can be found as a Wanderer and as a raid boss in the Isle of Armor. Electivire can be found as a Wanderer in the Crown Tundra, the first time it's been findable in the wild, just recently. Magmortar is in the same situation as Electivire, a Wanderer in the Crown Tundra, and nowhere else. Both Porygon 2 and Porygon Z cannot be found in the wild, which is good, because it would be absurdly illogical for them to be found in the wild. They're artificial Pokemon. Huntail and Gorbis can be found in several different games since Gen 5. They're not in Sword and Shield simply because their line is not available in those games. The next Pokemon to cover is Milotic, which is in a strange situation. Prior to Gen 5, this was not a trade evolution. You evolved Feebas by getting its beauty score high enough and then leveling it up. Now, whether or not that is possible in the wild is up for debate. I can see both sides of the argument, But the end result does not matter because Milotic is not found in the wild in Gens 3 and 4, so we don't care if it's impossible or not. What matters is Gen 5 onward, where you evolve Feebas by trading it while holding a prism scale. And in these generations, you can find it in the wild. You can fish in rippling water to get it in Gen 5, and then it's a wanderer in multiple Sword and Shield locations, plus being in max raid battles. Dusk Noir was not found in the wild until Sword and Shield, where it's in the Stony Wilderness and max raid battles. Gigalith could also not be found in the wild until the most recent games, where it wanders in the Dusty Bowl
I have a
and
thought.
is found in raid.
Sorry, it was for Feebas. Doesn't that mean that technically what has to happen is that Feebas just has to feel beautiful and then they evolve? Isn't that a nice thought?
Conkeldurr can be found by using Island Scan on Mondays in Sun and Moon, and then is a wanderer in a couple different Sword and Shield locations, plus is in max raids. Escavalier and Excelgor are obtained by trading Carablast and Shelmet with each other specifically, yet they are both found in the wild in Sword and Shield. Prior to the expansion pass, they were only in raids, but the Isle of Armor added them as wanderers, plus they're in Dynamax Adventures. Aromatisse can only be found in max raids, so fewer locations than a lot of the other trade Pokemon, but still considered a wild Pokemon in my eyes. The same is true for Slurpuff. Trevenant is a trade evolution, but could actually be found in the wild right at its introduction. Most trade evolution Pokemon could not be found in the wild until at least one generation after they were introduced. It is found in the Winding Woods in X and Y, plus in Poképelago in Sun and Moon, and max raids in Sword and Shield. In Crown Tundra, it became a wanderer in several places, and is a Dynamax Adventures Pokemon. The final trade Pokemon is Gourgeist, which is found as a wanderer in Hammerlock Hills, in several max
I still think
raid
trade
battles,
evolutions are
and
bullshit.
as a
Yeah,
max lair
I agree.
Pokemon. So of
What if I
all
don't
the
have fucking
trade
friends,
evolution
Game
Pokemon,
Freak?
The only ones that don't have at least one impossible spawn are the Golems and the Porygons. But a lot of them did not become impossible wild Pokemon until very recently. A lot of them are only found wild in Sword and Shield. I guess maybe they felt bad for having so many freaking trade evolutions, which are a lot less convenient than the other kinds, but it's illogical and it should be impossible. So that covers all of the trade evolution impossible wild Pokemon, but there are some other evolution methods that I think are impossible in the wild as well.
I had a friend that stole my Gengar. Well, they're not your friend anymore. You just have to beat their ass.
Knowing a certain move. Now, for a lot of these make perfect sense. For example, Clobbopus evolves into Grappalocked by leveling up while knowing Taunt. It learns Taunt by level up at level 35, so it just has to reach level 35, learn Taunt, and then level up again. But there is a know a move while leveling up evolution that does not work as nicely as most of the others.
They take your Gengar, you take their life. It's simple. I'm not condoning violence, but that is very funny.
Up while knowing Ancient Power. However, Piloswine doesn't learn Ancient Power at a convenient level. It learns it at level 1. You can teach a Piloswine Ancient Power by going to a move reminder, but that is not something a wild Pokemon could do. You also cannot breed a level 1 Piloswine that will know the move, because Piloswine is not the base form. All the babies are Swinubs, and Swinub does not get Ancient Power at level 1. Therefore, it's impossible to get a Piloswine with Ancient Power without using a move reminder, which means the Wild Mamoswine in the Giant Chasm in Gen 5 and the Slippery Slope in the Crown Tundra and in max raid battles in base Sword and Shield are impossible wild Pokemon. Or are they?
I don't know.
Swinub is actually capable of learning Ancient Power. It can get it as an egg move, which means if one of its parents knows the move, the Swinub will be born knowing the move. There are several possible parents that can know Ancient Power, but they only get it by breeding, and that would be too complicated of a family tree, and I'm not messing with that, so we're not caring about those. We only care about the possible parents that can learn Ancient Power by level up. Two of them are Piloswine and Mamoswine, which, as we've discussed, isn't really possible in the wild.
Also, isn't it
However,
Piloswine?
There's a third possible parent that could pass down the move Ancient Power onto Swinub. That being Dunsparce. Dunsparce can learn Ancient Power by leveling up, which is the easiest way to get the move. That means that if a male Dunsparce knowing Ancient Power bred with a female Swinub,
The worst part is you got a Caterpie? That's fucked up. No, you just have to beat them up.
Knowing Ancient Power, which could then not only become a Mamoswine itself, but it could also pass that move down onto other Swinubs and create more wild Mamoswine. So in short, all wild Mamoswines are descendants of a Dunsparce, which makes me very happy, and also I'm sure it makes my good buddy Pokemon 7 happy too, because Mamoswine and Dunsparce are two of his favorite Pokemon. The final Pokemon I'm going to cover
I don't know
is
what to do for this
Alcremie.
background check.
Milcery evolves into Alcremie by holding a sweet, then being spun around, the spinning being done by the trainer. This is an iffy one, but I think this makes Alcremie an impossible wild Pokemon. While it could theoretically get its hands on a sweet to hold, I think the spinning has to be done by a trainer. It's done in a particular way, and I don't really know how a Milcery could pull that off itself without the aid of a trainer. Therefore,
Yeah, these
the
motherfuckers
wild
really are
Alcremies
horny
found
for
in Max
Hornet.
Raid battles,
Jesus
to me,
Christ.
are impossible wild Pokemon. So in short, all of the impossible wild Pokemon are every trade evolution Pokemon except the Golems and Porygons plus Alcremie. Alright, that's all I have for now. So until next time, big fans. Gotta catch them all. Greetings, Boogie fans! Michael here, and in the Pokemon games, there are some moves that just aren't very good. Why use Water Gun when Scald is stronger and can burn? Why use Thunder Shock when you can use Thunderbolt? The same thing, but stronger. Now, of course, these weaker moves are important for the earlier parts of a playthrough to balance the game, but for post-game or competitive play, they're not very useful. But they're not completely useless. They still do damage, just less damage than their better alternatives. However, there are some situations out there where a Pokemon can learn a move that for it specifically, the move is completely useless. It either does nothing, always fails, or does something redundant. Today I'm going to be listing 10 instances of a Pokemon being able to learn a move that is useless for it specifically. However, I should specify up front that I'm going to be ignoring uncommon situations, mainly typings or abilities being changed or suppressed. Most of the moves that I'm going to be talking about are useless because they clash with the Pokemon's ability or typing. So therefore, if that ability or type
I'm glad I'm not
goes
showing
away,
what I'm seeing
then
on
the
screen
move
right
is
now
no
because
longer
this is
useless.
definitely silksong
However,
spoilers.
that only occurs in uncommon battle situations, and it would be kind of annoying to specify that every single entry. So just assume that all of these entries have to do with regular battle situations without any attributes of a Pokemon being changed. But now let's start with the first entry on our list, the first useless move situation, that being number 1, floating Pokemon with Magnet Rise. Magnet Rise is an electric type move introduced in Generation 4. For 5 turns after using it, the user acts like it has the ability Levitate. It's immune to ground moves, will not be impacted by spikes or toxic spikes, will not be affected by terrains, etc. It's not the best move out there, but
Have you heard of
it's
Lego Dimensions? I
situationally
have.
helpful for Pokemon that are weak to ground moves, like electric or steel.
Can I tell you how you got how I got
Now, you
revenge?
might be
Yeah, let's
thinking that
yeah,
they would
go for
only
it.
give a move like this to Pokemon that have not already magnet
This
risen.
to Smash
But
Ultimate's
nope,
Challenger
there are
Unlock
several
background? No,
floating Pokemon
that sounds
out there
lame.
that can learn Magnet Rise. Tynamo, Electric, Electros, and Vikavolt can all learn Magnet Rise, but have the ability Levitate, so they're already floating. Mini
That is incredibly redundant. I was not listening fully. Why did he say that the thing, what those Pokemon get those things? Holy shit, that is one of the most redundant things I've ever heard in my life. They already have Levitate. Probably because they resist ground, I'm not too sure. Well, I mean, I'm talking about he has he said there was a reason for those Pokemon to learn those moves when they don't need them. Because if they already have Levitate, they're already immune to ground, provided they don't do, the opponent doesn't do Smackdown, right? So they're immune to ground because they have levitate. So why the fuck would they learn magnet rise?
Or in Celesteela can also learn it, but are flying type Pokemon. So they too are already immune to ground moves. Of course, there are many situations where these Pokemon could stop floating, like they lose levitate or gravity is in effect or they're hit by smackdown. But as I said in the intro, I'm not going to be focusing on uncommon situations. The vast majority of the time, these Pokemon using Magnet Rise would be a complete waste of a turn. Next is a move that isn't very good normally, but it's completely useless on one particular Pokemon. That being number 2, Umbreon with Synchro Noise. Synchro Noise is a psychic type move introduced in Generation 5.
I've gone my whole entire life without realizing that says Synchro Noise and not Synchronize. Why waste one of your 4 moves on a situation that'll never fucking happen? Basically. I still love his Lego Dimension figures and mix the plats. I don't know what plats are. But good. Fuck them. Why would you do that? Why would you steal my shit?
It hits all adjacent Pokemon like Discharge.
Especially when it's so easy to just get a fucking Gengar. Or it's so easy to get a fucking Ghastly, evolve that bitch in a Haunter, and then trade again. And now you'll never trade Pokemon with him, and now he's got his shit mixed up.
Does, and it is base 120 power and 100% accurate. While that seems amazing, there's a catch. Synchro Noise will only damage Pokemon that share at least one type with the user. So if Noctowl uses it, it only hurts normal and flying type Pokemon. If Chimecho uses it, it can only hurt psychic type Pokemon. It's far too situational of a move to ever be good, but it's completely useless on Umbreon specifically. Eevee can get Synchro Noise as an egg move, and then of course can be evolved into all the evolutions, one of which is Umbreon. But Umbreon is
the platform what you need to place down characters. Oh, I understand. Okay, I got it. Yeah, fuck them. What am I doing? You're actually been using your posture checks pretty well, because I just been leaning the fuck in. Sorry, I didn't realize I didn't have the shit thing on. You know how you get hyper focused?
Dark type, which means that its Synchro Noise can only hurt other Dark type Pokemon. However, Synchro Noise is a psychic type attack, and therefore Dark type Pokemon are immune to it. Therefore, without any ring target shenanigans, Umbreon can never damage another Pokemon.
You either have good
using
posture or you're
Synchro
locked the
Moves.
fuck in.
The move is completely useless on it.
There's
the
no
next entry
exceptions.
also deals with the Dark type, but instead of a Dark type Pokemon, it's a Dark type move. That being number 3, Klutz Pokemon with Fling. Fling is a Dark type damaging move introduced in Generation 4 that involves the user throwing their held item at the opponent. The power and secondary effect of the move depends.
I remember this one because this is one of the things that Blue had on his Pokemon, and I decided not to use it.
Depends on the item that is flung, and the move can't be used again unless the Pokemon gains another item. As for Klutz, it's an ability that removes all the effects of the Pokemon's held item. They can still hold items, but they don't get the effects of one, whether the effects are positive or negative. It's honestly a pretty trash ability because held items are a really big part of competitive Pokemon play, and you just don't get to use one. However, there was a strategy back in Gen 4 where a Klutz Pokemon could hold a negative item like a Toxic Orb and then fling it onto the enemy Pokemon. So they can hold the item without being hurt by it and then inflict the enemy Pokemon with the effects of that item. But then Generation 5 implemented a change. Klutz Pokemon can no longer use Fling. If they try to use Fling and they have the ability Klutz, the move will fail every single time. There are
They
7
just don't give them
Pokemon
the
that can
fucking
both
thing.
have the ability Klutz and learn Fling. Baniri, Lopunny, Audino, Golett, Golurk, Stuffle, and Beware. While these Pokemon do have other abilities and could use Fling if they don't have Klutz, if you get one that does have Klutz, Fling is completely useless on them. Either don't teach it Fling or use an ability capsule on it, if possible. The next entry is number 4, non-sleepers with Rest. You likely know what Rest does, but in case you don't, it causes the user to fully regain their HP, then go to sleep for 2 turns, whether they had a non-volatile status condition or not. It's been around since Generation 1, and the vast majority of Pokemon can learn it. But even though it's a widespread move, there are several Pokemon that can't make use of it. Pokemon with abilities that prevent them from falling asleep. Those abilities being Insomnia, Vital Spirit, and
9
Sleep.
ads? Jesus
If a
Christ.
Pokemon with one of these 3 abilities tries to use Rest, the move will fail every time. I'm not going to list all of the Pokemon that this applies to because it's all of them. Every single Pokemon that can have Insomnia, Vital Spirit, or Sweet Veil can also learn Rest. Now, of course, these Pokemon have other abilities, so Rest is useful on them if they don't have one of their non-sleeping abilities. But if they do, don't teach it Rest. The move is a complete waste. Next is another situation involving Rest, but for a different reason. That being number 5, Shedinja with Rest. Now, Shedinja doesn't have Vital Spirit, Insomnia, or Sweet Veil. It can fall asleep. However, Rest can fail for 2 reasons. The first is if the Pokemon can't fall asleep, but the other is if the Pokemon's HP is full. Shedinja is a weird Pokemon due to its
that's
ability.
true. Yeah.
Wonder Guard prevents all direct attack damage to it unless the move is super effective. To compensate for that OP ability, Shedinja's base HP stat is 1. Literally 1. The max HP a Shedinja can have, even at level 100, is 1. Therefore, Rest will always fail if a Shedinja tries to use it. Because since Shedinja only has 1 HP, it's either at full HP or it's dead. There's no in-between, and an in-between value is necessary for Rest to work. The move will always fail if a Shedinja tries to use it. Side note, an honorable mention useless move for Shedinja is Final Gambit. This move causes the user to faint, but does damage to the target equal to the HP that the user lost by fainting. So since Shedinja only has 1 HP, Final Gambit will
Welcome back.
only ever
Sorry
do
for ad hell.
1 HP point of damage if a Shedinja uses it. Not technically useless, but so close to useless that I figured I should mention it. Alright, so that's 2 entries having to do with Rest. So let's stay on theme and have another entry not about rest specifically, but about just being generally lazy. That being number 6, Truant Pokemon with 2-turn moves. You likely know what Truant.
Okay, so I originally didn't realize that's how that worked. So imagine my fucking upsetness when I taught rest to my slacking. I thought it was fucking genius, but unfortunately, even if your Pokemon is asleep, its Truant still activates and skips its turn. It does not count for the fact that they're asleep as them skipping a turn. I was very upset.
Does. It's a hindering ability that only allows the Pokemon to move every other turn, with the Pokemon loafing around on the off turns. The ability sucks and is only useful if you are inflicting an enemy Pokemon with it, like by using entrainment. But what you may not have realized about Truant Pokemon is that they can't use 2-turn moves. On one of their good turns, they can initiate the charging turn of the move, but then on the second turn, they're loafing around. The move never gets to finish, and therefore the charging of it is reset. The moves simply don't work. Of the 3 Truant Pokemon...
Yes, for my help, one isn't even paying attention to me. What did I say? Did I ask for help? I don't even remember what happened. I don't remember. I'm so sorry. You said to tell you when it's 6 and it hit 6 like 8 minutes ago. I did notice that. Thank you for telling me. The reason why I didn't say anything is because I'm almost done or done for right now. So, but yeah, we're going to be ending up stream soon so I can get stuff prepared so we can do anime club tonight.
Each can learn one 2-turn move that will consistently fail. Slackoth and Slacking get Solar Beam, and Durant gets Dig. Now, of course, there are ways to get around this. If Truant goes away, then they're fine, and a Power Herb allows them to use the 2-turn charging move in just 1 turn, 1 time. So it allows them to use Solar Beam or Dig once. Also, if the sunlight is harsh, then Slackoth and Slacking can fire Solar Beams off in just 1 turn.
It's 11:08 p.m. for me. Where are you from, if you don't mind me asking?
There's no way to speed up and make a Dig take only 1 turn other than a Power Herb. So if it's not holding a Power Herb, a Truant Durant can never use Dig. Thankfully, this situation isn't really a problem. Slacking is a physical attacker, so
England?
it's not going to
No, I mean, which part of England?
Anyways,
I lived in the UK for about
that you're going to
for
pick
about 6
every
months.
time unless you're doing the Truant entrainment strategy.
All right, for now, this is what this is. I'm probably gonna ask some of my other art friends what they think of it, but for now, this is what we're dealing with. Oh goodness. Looks good. Yeah, but would you click on it though? Like, if you saw this if this video with this thumbnail showed up in your recommendeds, would you click on it? That's the question. Yes, I will watch it. Okay, but will you watch it? Thank you. Thank you. Also, I can send this to send it to Screech too. I'm not sure she'll be awake by then, but I'll send it to Kipsy as well. All right. That should be it. All right, let's go find someone to raid out to real quick. Let's play Marvel Rivals. I don't know why that's at the top of my list. Jedi's playing Donkey Kong. TSG's playing Sonic Racing. Celti's playing Final Fantasy. Links I can't raid into. You know what? Captain Bacon is playing Hollow Knight. Makes perfect sense. Let's raid into Captain Bacon. All right, I will see you guys in about 50-ish minutes for Anime Club in the Discord. So I hope everyone has a great night, and if I don't see you, I don't know, I still need to finish Total Drama Action. As soon as I found you, you had Twitch and I came over. Oh, well, I appreciate you showing up. I hope you see you more often. My posture is immaculate. Thank you. All right, so I will see you guys in a little bit. Have a great night. Get your food ready, get your snacks, and take care. Later.